All right, coming up, I'm going to give you my thoughts on the Marvels, and then John Cross from After Movie Diner and Miscellaneous Plumbing Fixtures. He's going to be joining us for DTVC Extra to look at Bloodfist III and Bloodfist IV. The next week, we're back to the regular pod with Mitch from Video Vacuum. He's going to be back on. We're going to be looking at one of the Steven Seagal True Justice movies, Deadly Crossing, so that should be a lot of fun. And then 2 weeks from today, we'll get back into DTVC Extra with Bloodfist V and VI. I don't think we'll have a guest for that one, but we'll see what happens. And then after that, Ty from Comeuppance, we should be recording soon to do our next episode. We're looking at the two movies together. And the two movies we have in mind, I think, I can't remember the names of them. We're going to finish off the Detective Night series, so the last of the 3 Detective Nights with Bruce Willis. And then we're going to do a Bruce Dern film. I think it's called like Hellblazers, something like that, that's on Tubi. It's got like all kinds of names, like Billy Zane. It's got Bruce Dern, of course, so we're going to do like a Bruce and Bruce kind of thing, but Billy Zane as well. Yeah, so it should be a good one. So anyway, we'll be recording that one soon. In terms of the site, I mean, I really need to do that Chinatown Connection one to get Art Camacho into the 50 Club, so that's something that we've got to do soon here. I've got to be watching other movies for other podcasts that I'm guesting on, and then my own podcast, so I've fallen a little behind, and I'm kind of been sticking to what, I did The Courier last week, which is one that had been in the can for a little bit. I've got like The Get Back with Theo Rossi, that one's also in the can, so may just stick with one of those, especially with being the holiday week as well, so we'll see if I end up watching anything, but like especially Chinatown Connection. Also, Peter Spellos passing away over the weekend. I'd like to do a movie in remembrance of him, one of the great absolute B-movie greats. I was telling John Cross, because John Cross, of course, knew him personally. I was very fortunate to be able to know him and meet him in person and consider him a friend. For me, I just knew him through the movies. But if you ever go back, I don't know if John has these available on his Facebook, but he did this series called Crosstalk during the early page of the pandemic, and Peter Spellos was one of his guests on there. It was really great conversation. So if you're able to find that's really great. But anyway, I'd like to do a movie kind of in honor of him. So I was saying to John, I think he's one of those that short list of names that made the movies we love the movies we love, right? I don't think I don't think Fred Olen Ray or Wynorski films are quite those movies without Peter Spellos or a lot of other names like Brink Stevens and other actors that were in those films, but Peter Spellos is definitely one of those. So I want to do a tribute post to him at some point as well. I've also got to start tagging him. I was looking; he's probably got like 10 movies on the site, and I don't think I've tagged him yet. So definitely do that soon as well. But yeah, but again, with it being the holiday week here in the States, I don't know if I'm going to get anything new watched and up. It may be just going back to something in the can like The Get Back or something like that I already have watched, have images of, and can just bang out the review. So we'll see what happens. There was a little bit in flux. Of course, novels, right? My newest one, Don's House in the Mountains, is available now. And my other 3 novels, Chad in Accounting, A Girl in a Gun, and Holtman Arms, those also are out with new covers. So I designed covers for them. So they are no longer just blank covers now. They're all newly designed covers. I'm waiting for Amazon to send me my author's copies. Actually, John sent me a picture saying he already got his copy of Don's House in the Mountains. I think if you order the paperback, I think because it's available through Prime, you get it faster. Whereas because the author's copy, they take their time with the author's copies. I think it's because most people get author's copies to sell them other places. Like, I take them to a bookstore here in Philadelphia and say, hey, will you sell my books? Which I may do. I've never really done that before. But for me, I get the author's copy. So 1, it can be on my shelf and be like, hey, there's my novel on my shelf. But 2, I can take pictures for social media ads and things like that. Of course, I'm talking about the paperback copy. If you really want to, if you're really interested and want to buy the book, you can get it on Kindle for only $5. So that's $7 less, or $8 less actually. It's $12.99 for the paperback. So for $8 less, you can get it for on your Kindle device, or your with the Kindle app on your smartphone or tablet, and I get roughly the same royalty. So you're supporting just the same. So, and I always appreciate any support that people want to give, even if it's not actually buying the book. If it's just liking and retweeting, that always is a huge help for me as well. So I always appreciate that kind of thing. So yeah, for sure. But those are out now. In terms of Bainbridge, one of the things I'm looking at is I might re-release Bainbridge in a kind of a smaller, almost like mass market paper book style. So we'll see about that. But Bainbridge is still available. It's still there. I think I might put it. One of the things I discovered is there might be an issue with one of the fonts, so I might be republishing it soon. But I think I might try to re-release it in a newer version. But the old version's always there. And again, always get that on Kindle. I believe that one's $2.99 on Kindle, so it's available there. It's a very short read, very quick read. But again, I think for action fans, I think you definitely love that. So, yeah, of course, the links to the novels. I think Don's House in the Mountains. I don't think I have a link yet on like the side of the page, but if you look at like the most recent review, there's a link to Don's House in the Mountains. And then I tried putting the links in the descriptions of the podcast, and I found that the links don't always work. So I've got to take a look at that and see what's going on there. Like when somebody tries to go, I feel like I should just be able to click on it from iTunes and it'll take me to my page. But it doesn't always do that. So I'll see if I can try to fix those links. Hopefully by the time you're checking this podcast description, I'll fix the links. But anyway, so I wanted to talk about the Marvels because I just saw it. And one of the interesting things, and I'll probably put a reminder about this when I post Mitch's, when Mitch is a guest on, because when Mitch was on, when we were recording like last week, I brought up the Marvels. It just sort of came up, and he had seen the Marvels, and he, in true Mitch style, he gave it a B-, which a B- sounds like a bad grade for a movie, but with Mitch is a bit of a tougher grade, especially with like big Hollywood movies. And talking with him about it on the podcast, he really enjoyed it. And I was like, well, it seemed like a very complicated plot just from me, going to a couple other movies this year, The Expendables or Expendables or whatever it's called, and also Fast X or Fast 10 or whatever it was called. There were trailers for the Marvels, and it looked like it was a very complicated story. It looked like it had a lot going on. Plus, there's this idea like, oh, do I need to see WandaVision and Ms. Marvel because I hadn't seen either of those yet? Is that something that's required? I didn't know. When I talked to him about it, he's like, yeah, you don't need to see any of that stuff, and it's not a complicated plot. It's actually a really fun plot, a lot of fun stuff going on, so I think you'd like it. I also saw TV's Frank. He made this really great joke because people were saying like, oh, the reason why the Marvels is failing is because people have to do homework, right? You got to watch those Disney Plus shows first or whatever. And TV's Frank made the joke that like, well, no, everybody's fine going to see McHale's Navy. McHale's Navy joins the Air Force, And so I actually joked back. I was like, well, the reason why people saw McHale's Navy joins the Air Force and not the Marvels is that Gavin McLeod was in McHale's Navy joins the Air Force. He actually liked that tweet. But anyway, but it is a great point, right? That nobody was saying like, oh, I need to watch every single McHale's Navy episode before I go see McHale's Navy joins the Air Force, right? They just went and saw it. They wanted to see Tim Conway, goof around or whatever. And yeah, of course, you always love Gavin McLeod in anything. So I went into this without having seen either WandaVision or the Marvels. I did see Captain Marvel in the theater. I was trying to think in terms of the last of the, I think Endgame was the last Marvel movie I'd seen. So that was the last one that I'd seen as a Marvel movie. The last time I'd actually seen a Marvel movie in the theater, I believe, was Spider-Man 3, the Tobey Maguire one. I think that was 2007. I think that was the last time I saw any of the Marvel movies in the theater. So the rest of the ones that I've seen since then, like from Iron Man on, they were all ones that I've either watched it, got a DVD of it, saw it on cable, or now, on streaming. So this was my first time seeing it in the theater. I realized that when I was sitting to watch this one, and they do the whole Marvel introduction, and I was like, boy, I haven't seen this in the theater in forever. But I want to say that was the last one, was Spider-Man 3. So been 16 years since I'd seen any Marvel movies in the theater. And I think that definitely maybe plays into maybe why I really enjoyed the Marvel. So, spoiler alert, I really like this movie. But I think part of the reason why I did is because I don't have the same kind of Marvel fatigue that I think a lot of other people were getting. So I wasn't like, oh, I've got to watch all of these shows. I got to watch all of these things. I hadn't seen any of the shows. I hadn't seen any of the movies since Endgame. And then before Endgame, I was looking at it, like, I've barely seen half of the movies, right? I think I could probably count the ones that I've seen, right? Because I was like, Endgame, of course, the Infinity War before that. I saw Captain Marvel, saw Black Panther. Haven't seen the new Black Panther, though. Iron Man 1 and 2, I think Captain America 1 and 2, right? Because I didn't see the Civil War one, but I saw the other two. It's like I said, it's not a lot of them. It's like maybe like the Thor. I saw Thor 2 and Thor Ragnarok, and it's funny. I saw Thor 2, but not Thor 1, right? Because Thor 2 was on cable, and I was like, oh, I'll just start watching this. So I've seen Thor, I guess, 2 and 3, but not 1. And I guess I haven't seen 4 because I didn't see the most recent one, right? Thor, Love and Thunder. I didn't see that one either. So, so it's not like I've seen a lot of these Marvel movies. And so there's not, I guess, a sense of me getting Marvel fatigue. And it's possible that's, I know there's also the whole kind of incel piece of it that people are complaining about. But I do think Marvel fatigue could be a factor in why this movie isn't doing as well as people expect it to do. So, and to be honest, I don't even know like what well is, right? What does it need to do well? That's, I guess, another part of this is like how much these movies need to make nowadays. And I think maybe that's the biggest problem, I guess, with this is that it just can't be a movie anymore, right? I guess, right, had a budget of $220 million, so you got to make 3 times your budget, so it's got to make, $600 million to be good, and now it's only grossed like $161 million worldwide. I mean, it's a shame that a movie can't just be a movie anymore, right? But that's the reality for Disney and Marvel and all of that, because it was just a fun movie. It just did what I would want a movie to do. It was entertaining. The story wasn't overly complicated, which I appreciated. I think again, that was my fear in the trailer, is that it looked like it was overly complicated. That's perfectly fine. It had some fun send-ups, like Mitch was telling me about, like a good send-up to like kind of Bollywood dance sequences in movies, which I thought was really funny. Trouble with Tribbles element to it, which was really cool. I mean, anytime you can include cats in a movie, that always works for me. So that was really great. Both ways, right? It has actual cats, and then by having actual cats, they did sort of a bit of a send up to the Andrew Lloyd Webber cats, which I almost called him Andrew Dice Clay instead of Andrew Lloyd Webber. So I had to go back to my my MST3Ks and remember the Andrew Lloyd Webber grill with the Invention Exchange to be able to get that right. But anyway, back to the movie. I think there's so many. I guess we've hit this time where I don't know. I don't want to get overly political with it, but I think there's a sense that like if there's a movie that it's female led, right? It's got Brie Larson as the lead, right? But she's kind of a lead, right? She's really the lead, right? And then you've got Teyonah Parris plays Monica Rambeau, who again, her character was originally, I guess it was kind of introduced in WandaVision. I remember her as the daughter or the niece, the daughter of Carol Danvers' friend from the first movie, because I did see the first movie. Then you have Aman Vellani, who plays Kamala Khan, who I knew the character, but I didn't see the Disney Plus TV shows. And of course, Samuel L. Jackson is back as Nick Fury. And so it's this idea, I guess, that if you've got a movie with 3 women, 2 of them are women of color, that you've got that kind of diversity, that somehow there's like this woke element to it that then it has to be countered with an anti-woke element. And I didn't see anything woke about this movie. It was just the movie. And it's like, if you don't have white males in the lead, right, it runs into this thing where people think it's like some kind of virtue signal or something like that. And it wasn't any of that. It was just a movie, and I think it's refreshing, right? That you could have just a movie with 3 stars that aren't just white males, and it's, not everybody has to be Superman or Batman or Spider-Man, right? I think that's one piece of it. I think that it is just a movie, and that works, but. I don't think there's, if there's backlash because of that, there's sort of an anti-woke backlash because of that. I think it says more about the people who are anti-woke and complaining about it. I mean, the other piece of it, of course, right, the other reason why people think it's failing is the Marvel fatigue element and this idea that you have to do homework to see this movie. You don't have to do homework to see this movie. I did not see I didn't see Ms. Marvel. I didn't see WandaVision. I don't know anything, I know that these characters were introduced in those, but I haven't seen them, and it's perfectly fine. Just like it's perfectly fine to watch, the 1966 Batman movie without having watched the 1 or 2 seasons of the TV show that it was based off of before. You can just go in and watch the old, that movie and be like, yeah, this is perfectly fine. Some days you just can't get rid of a bomb. I'm sure it may have helped in understanding some story elements for me, but there really wasn't anything that was confusing or that I didn't understand about the story. There wasn't anything that was like, if it, I didn't know what was going on there, and somebody would be like, asking somebody and them saying like, if you had just seen this, you would have gotten it from that. None of that stuff was there. I think they did a good enough job of creating a story that was self-contained on its own, that you didn't need all that other stuff. You didn't need to have watched the other stuff. I think it's one of the fears I think that I was having with Marvel anyway, right? It was that everything was so interconnected, and that it made it hard for people to follow it all when it was all so interconnected. But if this movie's an indication of how some of the other ones are, I don't think it's so bad, right? I mean, it's great that these characters took, had storylines and other things, but I didn't need Kamala Khan's I didn't need her origin story to make this movie work, right? I just understood that she was a teen girl who had superpowers and had a thing for Captain Marvel, and she meets Captain Marvel in real life, and I understood that, again, like I knew Monica Rambeau from the first Captain Marvel movie as like the daughter of Carol Danvers' our best friend, so I understood her as that character. Now she's grown up and she's a superhero on her own. They explain how she got her power, so I didn't need to have watched WandaVision to know her story. So that idea, right, that you need. People had to do homework to watch this movie. Again, it's just like TV's Frank was saying. Like, you didn't need to watch all of McHale's Navy to understand McHale's Navy joins the Air Force. So I think those are two big pieces of this, right? Is that it's not woke or anti-woke. It just is, right? It just is. But also, you don't need to do homework to enjoy this movie. It just is. You can just go in and watch it and just have fun. It's a nice space romp kind of movie. I don't know. And again, though, I can understand if people are going. I think the anti-woke or woke anti-woke thing, that's its own thing, right? I think everybody's talking about like the incels, complaining about it, which I guess, for me, right? I guess because I'm married, I guess that's not a concern. I guess I don't know if I hadn't met my wife and gotten married and I was single, would I not like this movie? Would I be like, rooting for it to fail? I don't know. And the other thing, too, is it's not like this is the only blockbuster to fail this year, right? The Flash didn't do so hot. Fast X was kind of mediocre. The new, which I'm drawing a blank here on Mission Impossible, right? The new Mission Impossible didn't do well. That Dial of Destiny movie didn't do well. So a lot of the movies didn't do well this year. So it's not like this is the only blockbuster to do poorly, because it had three diverse women as the leads as opposed to one white guy. Because, Mission Impossible had, an old white guy in the lead, and that didn't do so hot either. So I don't know if that's part of it, right? I guess there always has to be narratives around these things, and I guess that's part of the problem too, right? Is again, a movie can't just be a movie anymore. It has to have a narrative. It has to have like a post-mortem on why it didn't do so well. It has to do a certain number as well. I mean, if you're going to spend $220 million to make a movie, I get it, right? It's got to make $600 or $700 million just to recoup what was spent on it. So I understand that part of it, right? That from Disney's standpoint, they're not going to be happy that this movie's not doing so well, and that's. Yeah, and I don't know how you make it for less than $220 million, because the movie's only an hour and 45 minutes long. So I don't know, like, enough of like special effects and all that like they could have made it less, they could have made it for $100 million or something. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, maybe that's the thing, right? Maybe this is what's going to be the tipping point with these movies, is that maybe the studios are going to say, like, we're not just going to throw around $220 million anymore, right? If you want to make a Marvel's sequel, right, it's got to be something that's a little bit less crazy, right? If you want to go out in space, right, you got to do space on a budget. And to be honest, I would be perfectly fine with that. I think, the characters in this worked. I think everything else about this worked. So, yeah, I would be perfectly fine if they did this for, $100 million, and then it only had to make $300 million. And, that was, that's what the budget needed to make back. But anyway, but I'll just say, I liked the Marvels. I think if you're thinking about going to the theater to see a movie, and this one's on your radar, and you're like, I don't want a 6. I think it's going to be too woke. Don't worry about that part. It just is a movie. It doesn't, so there's that, and again, if you're worried about a movie being too woke, that probably says more about you than it does about the movie itself. But anyway, just the point is, it just is as a movie. But also, don't be worried about having to watch all of the Marvel stuff ahead of time. So I'm probably in the lower percentile of Marvel watchers, right? I've seen probably the least amount of Marvel Cinematic Universe stuff, as anybody you probably know listening to it, other than Brett from Comeuppance Reviews. I remember when Ty and I were talking about Marvel with him. He's like, I haven't seen any of the movies. I think he hasn't seen any of them. So he's less than me, but I'm pretty low down the list in terms of having seen this stuff. And I was able to just go into this movie and enjoy it and not worry about that part. So you don't need to do homework. It's You don't need to know who all these people are and having to watch all these series and all that stuff before. And the movie tells you enough about it when you're watching it. And it's a fun space romp. And I think, I think out of the movies I've seen this year, so I saw Fast X in the theater, Fast X, Expendables, and this one. This one was my favorite of those three that I've seen in the theater this year. So I think it's definitely worth checking out. Everybody should catch it for sure. All right, well, with that, why don't we have John from After Movie Diner? He'll do our theme song, and then John's going to be on, and we're going to be talking about Bloodfist III. All right, we are back with the DTVC Connoisseur Extra, which this one's actually extra this time around, because usually I'm solo for these, but we've got a special guest this time around. We've got John Cross from After Movie Diner, from Miscellaneous Plumbing Fixtures, and I can say also now Video Store Connecticut. Be Kind Rewind. So yes, welcome, John.
Yes, the Be Kind Rewind Movie Vault now open in New Milford, Connecticut. And exciting news tonight, Matt. Hot off the presses.
Yes.
I was recently featured in a local newspaper here in Connecticut, the New Milford Spectrum. But also the story ended up in the Danbury News Times, which is an even bigger newspaper. Anyway, Kim shared that article today on her social medias. And everyone was commenting, and one of our mutual friends who lives down in Stamford, Connecticut, said, isn't it a shame that a video shop down there, a long-running rental video shop, it's been there since 97, and it's been operating till today. I think it's one of the longest-running mom-and-pop video rental places still going in the country. Sadly, having to close because the owner has to go to Arizona to take care of a sick mother. And what a good son for doing that, because, I'm sorry, Mum, but I don't know if I'm going back to England to live in England to look after you if you get sick. Sorry. I mean, what's the NHS for anyway? Come on. No, I'm kidding. But no, he's heading out. So obviously there's a part of me, now that I have this video store, go, I should buy his video store, right? But obviously, I don't have anywhere near that kind of money. Anyone who does listening to this, please send all investment inquiries to 347-669-0053. That's 347-669-0053. But no, in all honesty, so we went down there because I'm like, I call him up and I'm like, I know you're closing. It's very sad. Are you open your regular hours? He's like, yeah, we're open till 8. Every night this week, don't worry, come on down. So we go on down after work, and I go, and I said to him on the phone, do you have VHS? He goes, oh yeah, I got thousands of VHS, trying to get rid of them. So I went down there. I spent, 2-3 hours ransacking his VHS selection, which, by the way, wasn't organized in any way at all. This was like the most ramshackle, dusty video store you've been. I fell instantly in love. Like I wanted to buy the place, Matt, rename it, and keep it open. I wanted to just figure it out. But anyway, went down there, ransacked a bunch of VHS. I've posted some photographs in the group. But most exciting for you and me, Matt, look, not one, but 3 more Jim Belushi tapes.
Oh, that's so beautiful.
Owned. I got K9, the original VHS tape. Beautiful. I got that. They're probably offensive at this point. Homer and Eddie, Whoopi Goldberg and Jim Belushi, the 2 classic comedy double act that you've been waiting to see, and the whole time Belushi is doing a highly offensive special needs voice. Anyway, lastly, taking care of business.
Oh, of course, yes.
So putting it next to Royce and Traces of Red, I'm very happy about that. And if I go back, I've got my eye on a couple of others as well. So
nice. That's what, now how far, because my only understanding of Stamford is taking the train from Boston to Philadelphia. Stamford is like a whole bunch of skyscrapers and buildings that are like corporate buildings that don't want to be based in New York City. That's sort of what Stamford is. But
exactly
yeah, yeah, so yeah.
But it's also, Matt, what it also is it's a seafront that has a lovely seafront. So Stamford has a lovely seafront, and it also has a lot more rural style suburbs. So this particular video shop is in the corner of a strip mall in the more suburban area of Stamford. It's not in the city proper.
Right.
It's sort of in the. It's probably a good like 15 minutes still out from the city by car. So
Okay. Oh, so yeah, and so yeah, like because Connecticut, like, so you're kind of all in that sort of southern Connecticut
I'm
area.
actually in northwestern Connecticut. I'm actually about an hour 20 away from
From
Stamford.
Stamford.
Yeah. So we drove down there and then got dinner on the way home. And
Yeah, that's not a bad. A Belushi Hall is a hall, and
a Belushi Hall, but I got all sorts of other things, which I'm equally excited about. I got, Matt, and I'm so, like, of all the videos that I found tonight, the one that made me audibly gasp, like I opened the door and went, like a just an excited schoolboy on Christmas morn running out to see that Santa has been. That's how I was like. Picture that, a little cherubic face on a young beardless John Cross in short pants running out into the snow. That's how I felt, Matt, because I found one of my top 3 Donald Pleasance films of all time on VHS, Race for the Yankees Zephyr. It's the one where in the first 10 minutes, Pleasance is drunk off his ass and chainsawing a bar in half in the middle of Australia. Who doesn't love that? Hangs out with hobo mountain men who know how to build a tank out of some old bits of wood and spit. It is one of my favorite. George Papard is in the film being the most camp and effeminate George Papard's ever been. The irony being is, of course, in Breakfast at Tiffany's, where in the book his character is gay, he plays it all butch and hard and whatever. And then in Race for the Yankees Zephyr, where he's the main antagonist, he's like the main villain, he's all like, whoops, darling, we've got to go chase Pleasance, with hands flapping about and a lot of high-pitched squealing. And I was like, that doesn't make a lot of sense, Peppard, but fine, whatever you want to do.
So this movie has Ken Wall in it as well, right?
Yes. Ken like a wall. Ken might as well be a brick wall. But the good thing is, Matt, is that while Ken Wall is listed as starring in the movie, Donald Pleasance is the star, my friend. He gets all the good lines. He has all the good ideas. He gets to hang upside down from a helicopter with a net trying to catch deer, which seems like a completely mad way to try and catch deer, to dangle a drunk 68-year-old Donald Pleasance out of a helicopter with a wide net. That's not. I mean, listen, it's the only kind of hunting I want to do. I have no interest in any hunting unless they're dangling Donald Pleasance out of a helicopter. Then I'm there for it, Matt. I'm there for it with bells on. So I opened the drawer because he has all these amazing drawers of VHS, and he let me behind the counter, and I was, dude, so exciting. And I opened up the drawer, and there was Race for the Yankees Zephyr, and I went, I audibly asked Matt as if I had just come across the, a Fabergé egg or something, or something of real worth rather than a low Pleasance vehicle from the early 1980s. Anyway, or late 70s, whenever it was.
Yes, this is 81 on here. It's actually available on Tubi. So I feel like now it's like I have no excuse. I need to watch this movie.
The marvelous Tino Lorber put it out on Blu-ray as well.
Yeah, of course, which they do a great work. I mean, Pleasance, like, it's, you know, it's kind of funny because of the two movies we're going to be talking about, Bloodfist 3 and Bloodfist 4. Bloodfist 4 has what I always term the poor man's American Donald Pleasance and James Token. It was,
Yes.
you know, which does sound like a crazy concept that you can't get Donald Pleasance, so you've got to settle for James Token.
Yeah,
Right? Like what was
right.
Donald Pleasance turning down? Like, what
I
roles did
know.
he ever turn
Well,
down?
I mean, Donald Pleasance was probably, to be fair, working on 8 other movies at the same time in
Exactly.
4 different continents, all
Right.
while completely pissed up on beer.
Exactly. Yeah, everybody talks about how fantastic it was, and it was fantastic that Phil Collins during Live Aid did London and Philadelphia in the same day. You have to think that Pleasance was doing it, had to have been doing at least 2 or 3 movies in the same day at some point.
Right, exactly. And also, by the way, let's not discount Michael J. Fox, who did Back to the Future and Family Ties at exactly the same time,
Right.
which, by the way, is fucking mad,
Right.
right?
Yes.
He did that for like an entire season.
Yeah.
It's also mad that, of course, they completely and utterly redid all of Back to the Future, like,
Right.
like 85% of it, because of Stoltzy,
Right.
because of filthy Eric Stoltz.
Yeah, the Eric, so like seeing, I think it was like E True Hollywood Story or something that talked about that like, yeah, that, you know, Stoltz, you know, they wanted Stoltz for the role, and they really wanted Michael J. Fox, and it was like, okay, yeah, yeah,
What
and
I don't understand is they shot like 80% of the movie. Like, at
yeah,
what point were they just like, no, this isn't working out? Like,
yeah,
was it right down to the very last moment where they were like, you know, they went back and forth for maybe 2 full weeks or
right,
whatever, or even 2 full months? You know, I mean, how long did it take to shoot a Back to the Future movie? Like, back then it was months, right?
right,
Like,
right,
like 6 to 8 weeks or something. So yeah, then Stoltz shot almost the entire movie, and
yeah.
then they were like, "No, we don't like Stoltz. We're going away from. We're moving in another direction, and we're going to force the kid from Family Ties to damn near fucking kill himself." Uh,
Right.
so I mean, Phil Collins, good effort, mate, but I
Right.
think Michael J. Fox has got you beat. And in terms of, like, you know, movies in a year, you know, Donald Pleasance, Eric Roberts, and our gentleman this evening, Don the Dragon Wilson.
Yeah.
You know, him and Rothrock during this period, kicking out about 5 movies a year, Matt, of varying quality, but still, you know, 5 movies a year, lots of ass kicking. I think even occasionally competing at the same time. I don't think Cynthia was anymore, but I think Don still competed a little bit.
Yeah.
And I mean, just so awe-inspiring. I've often said that while I'm sure, you know, George Clooney or Ryan Reynolds have a wonderful life, you know, swanning about in Italy or whatever, the kind of career I would have wanted if I'd really pushed the acting thing would be the career of an Eric Roberts or the career of a Donald Pleasance. Like, don't say no to anything. Go to far-flung, weird corners of the world. You know what I mean? Be dubbed in every single different language. Wear a variety of shabby raincoats. Like, I would, you know, one minute you're a cop in Italy, the next minute you're a hobo gold treasure hunter down in New Zealand, and then the next minute you're Dr. Loomis in Haddonfield fighting Michael Myers. All sorts of things that you could be doing in a year. Listen, that's far more exciting. I guarantee far more exciting than anything George Clooney's done in 20 years. And I like George Clooney, but I'm just saying.
Yeah. Now, Donald Pleasance has that kind of career. I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, and it's just like, there's never anything that I'm surprised to see him in. Like, it's like watching Mystery Science Theater 3000. They do Puma Man, and it's like, of course, or like, what was the other one? The one, why can't I think of the name of it, with Ginty and Fred Williamson?
Oh,
Yeah,
Whitefire.
yeah, right. No,
Whitefire.
no, no, not that. No, no. That is crazy. Is Whitefire?
Well,
No.
that's the Hammer. What other movie was Ginty and the Hammer in together?
It was called Death. It was one that had like Mega Weapon and stuff. Oh Lord, why? I cannot believe I'm drawing. This is age creeping in on me here for sure.
I'm
Um,
definitely feeling that a lot lately.
yeah.
Um,
Ginty's the one I think I have the best shot at, because he's the one who passed away the longest ago. That I'm going to run up against his movie faster than anybody else, I think. Let's see here. It was in the early '80s. Actually, it was around the same time. Like Pleasance was probably shuttling between these movies.
Right,
So,
right, right.
of course, it's not loading right now. Here we go. Let's see here. Warrior of the Lost World. That's what it was.
Oh, wait,
Yes.
wait. No, sorry. When you were talking about Pleasance, and then you went to the Hammer and Ginty, I should have got. Sorry, yes, I should have understood where the. Like, I would have told you Warrior of the Lost World. Yes,
Right.
I just wasn't thinking that.
Yeah.
I'm with you. Age is creeping up my spine as well.
All I could think of was Mega Weapon, the big, truck or whatever. That was all I could think of. I couldn't think of
the
anything.
best part of Warrior. So the Warrior of the Lost World, that has two great parts. The opening, the fight in the desert is like great with Ginty and Hammer.
Yes.
And the ending with Pleasance doing his B-movie version of Blofeld from James Bond is also fantastic. So, this is another thing where I kind of get a bit annoyed where people are like, oh, these are the worst. Because I know people like Mystery Science Theater and whatever and riff tracks, and I'm not going to shit on them too much, but like, I don't like this idea that, a film with Robert Ginty, Fred the Hammer Williamson, and Donald Pleasance isn't great, because it is great.
Yes.
And just because you want to sit around and make a lot of jokes about it doesn't, why don't you make jokes about Jim Belushi, according to Jim Belushi movies? That's what classy people do, Matt.
Exactly. No,
but I wanted to give because the DTVC, I wanted to give the DTVC listeners just a rundown of some of the direct-to-video type classics that I was able to pick up tonight.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Finish your thought, sir. Finish your thought first.
No, I was going to say, I watched Warrior of the Lost World for the blog, Sans MST3K, and I was like, wow, I'm actually enjoying this movie. Like, what's going on here, And you're right. It's because there's no way, in throwing in Persis Combatta doesn't hurt, So it's like, Donald Pleasance, Ginty, Fred the Hammer Williamson, like you can't go wrong with that grouping. It's but you're right. Like I guess I jokingly call myself the direct-to-video connoisseur, but like I think that's why it's like that's the kind of movie that you want, right? That's that's Olivier and Christopher Plummer and whatever whatever.
Right.
Great
No, it is. I mean, Pleasance is the Olivier of the B movie world.
Right.
I mean, he was. When you see him really do a great role, whether it's like The Caretaker or whether it's Rainbow Boys or something like that, like one of his more dramatic roles, or even like some of the stuff he did like in Fantastic Voyage or THX 1138, that kind of stuff. Pleasance has got the chops. You know what I mean? Like he is a very qualified, very exceptional British actor. And he really does have the chops. He's got the eyes. Yeah. He's got the bald dome. Yeah. He's willing to, work for beans or be in big blockbusters. Yeah. And so the B movies were lucky to have him. You know what I mean? There are those moments where the hokiest of ideas can be elevated by a thespian taking it seriously.
Right.
You know what I mean? A lot of those sword and sandal or fantasy epics that were made in the 80s, a lot of them survive entirely because a bunch of British thespians took it really seriously, even though it's obviously goofy as all hell, right?
Yeah.
So, you've got to love the bravado and the chops that like a Timothy Dalton and a Brian Blessed bring to Flash Gordon. You know what I mean? Yeah. They take Flash Gordon and they go, no, we totally understand what's needed here. Right. Brian Blessed needs to literally chew the scenery. I think there's actually scenes in Flash Gordon where he's like chomping on physical parts of the set. And then Timothy Dalton slinking around in his green tights like a giant alien penis, making everybody in the audience uncomfortably horny. And the pair of them just giving it and also Max von Sydow, of course, completely taking the role of being the merciless very seriously. Because then in which case, then you can throw like Topol and Sam Jones banging about and being insane. And you kind of go, oh, well, I accept this now. I accept it because look, oh, fuck, there's Max von Sydow and there's fucking Brian Blessed giving it the beans. And you're like, okay, well then, I'm along for the ride. And that's what I think very often you need. So like you drop Donald Pleasance into, Alone in the Dark or into some of his Italian stuff, Paganini horror or The Fall of the House of Usher with Oliver Reed or whatever it is, like Nothing Underneath, which is another great Italian giallo that he plays a cop in. You just drop him in that, and immediately you've elevated your your Tim Pot appreciation of an appreciation of an appreciation. Like it's like a lot of those films that Pleasance would end up in weren't even like Argento giallos. They were like
Right.
second or third tier appreciations of giallos. But dude, he elevates every damn thing he's in. So
Yeah.
that's why I realized that the last few paragraphs I've said of complete garbled nonsense.
No, I mean, for me, when it comes to those giallo films, those are the ones that I prefer. Are kind of the 2 or 3 tiers down, where it's like, at best, I might be able to find it on YouTube, and it's usually something like I've stumbled onto because an actor who was in an actor, it's like, oh, what else did they do? They're in this Ginty flick. What else did they do? And it's like, oh, okay, because it seems like Ginty did a lot of stuff that had older actors and actresses that did giallo films before, in the early 80s, and it's like, oh well, let me see, then it's like, okay, I'm gonna watch this, and it's just ridiculous, it's just like the blood that looks like this bright, like reddish, like almost like a Christmas icing color.
Oh yeah,
that's like spread around and stuff. And it's just, people being, screaming, and women being tossed around and cars crashing and stuff. And but it all kind of works on this sort of manic level that I kind of prefer to like the Dario Argento ones that are a little bit cleaner and, better made.
Oh, 100%. No, there's something wonderfully liberating about those Italian films, because there is enough of the American imitation in them that you're like, well, I know where I'm at. I know that there are some cops and there are some bad guys and they're running through the streets of Rome or wherever. I know what's going on. And even if I don't fully understand everything because it's translated 15 different ways, we'll just go with it, because there'll be some gore, some interesting outfits, car chases, things will explode. And yeah, it's always a joy. And if let's say you're a Pleasance fan, right? And you watch a bunch of those Italian movies that he made, or you're a Fred Williamson fan, you watch the Black Cobra series or something like that. You're bound to see, the odd character actor, either, an American slumming it abroad, or an Italian character actor who's kind of got known for these kind of films. You're bound to see them repeat if you're, watching it. And like you say, that's where you then go, well, I've already done my deep dive on Donald Pleasance. How about I do a deep dive on the second or third tier guy, only to find out that they themselves have a resume of 1,000 films. You know what I mean? Exactly. They've more than once fought a giant cockroach with a flaming torch or something. You know what I mean? Like they've more than once probably been in some giant bug movie or some karate movie or some Italian cop movie, which is just the kind of wonderful career that I would have loved that, Matt. That would have, and again, and in all seriousness, we've talked about this before, but like the fact that Fred the Hammer Williamson doesn't get the credit for essentially, not only did he go to Italy and go, well, my acting career is not going to be over, I'm just going to figure out wherever they want me and I'll go to there. But he also continued to produce, write, direct, and so on. And in the list of great doing it for themselves independent directors, I don't feel like Williamson gets enough of a mention. I mean, look, I'm not going to deny it. Some of his films are messy as all fuck, but the fact that he scraped together a few coins and his in inverted commas international reputation and just went, well, fuck it, let's make some movies. You've got to give the man enormous credit for that. And in the story of sort of the blaxploitation period, or the African American filmmaking of the 70s, right through to the African American filmmaking of the sort of late 80s, early 90s, that when sort of Spike Lee was coming out and Singleton and people like that, the story always stops in 1975 with it just being like, and then Hollywood decided to make movies with white people again, and done. And I always think that that's, incredibly unfair to those actors who, went on and had a career for many, many, many years on their own, on their own. What's the word I'm thinking of?
Kind of like their own volition or their own their own
Their own,
hook
but
or
like
impetus. Their own.
their own the way they wanted to do it, meaning
Right.
not compromised, right?
Yes.
In an uncompromised way, and we're so quick to hand out baubles to people who barely do a damn thing.
Right.
But we don't. Why don't sometimes I don't think we celebrate the right people, which is why I think that shows like this are so important, Matt. In all honesty and genuine, I mean it genuinely, because I myself, my film knowledge in the last 15, 16 years of being in the States, getting to know people like yourself, getting to know Mo, getting to know other, Doug Tilley and stuff, people who could really educate me in films that I, knew about on the fringes, but weren't, deep diving on. And then, cut to about 8 years of me living here, about eight years ago. So I've been here 16 years this December, but cut to about 8 years ago. And, I've got a very, very healthy collection of 80s, 90s action movies, of 70s and 80s horror films, of 60s, 70s, and 80s Italian cop films and thrillers and action movies and horror movies and giallos and all sorts of stuff that, I may have seen one or two things of when I was growing up. But and then there's other stuff like Hammer Horror and my love of The Burbs, the Tom Hanks early movie.
Oh, yes, one of my favorites.
That I've had since childhood, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it all sort of mixed together. But all I'm saying is, like, in the last 10 years, because of podcasting, my breadth of film knowledge has just exponentially grown, and it's all thanks to shows like this and Drunk on VHS and Profondo Cinema and all those good shows.
Yeah, while we're talking here, I wanted to kind of see if I could go back and find in the archives the episode that you and I did on Williamson, because that was we did three or we did
one down, two to go, and three the hard way. Didn't we?
The hard way, yeah. There it is. It was it was in March of 2020, episode 65 in the archives for people listening. That was a really great episode where we really kind of talked about, and I think one of the things we talked about with one down, two to go, kind of to your point about this idea that in 1975, Hollywood stopped using black actors, and then, suddenly, we pop back up in the late 80s, early 90s, and nothing happens in between. With one down, two to go, Fred Williamson, when he's making that movie with Jim Brown, with Richard Roundtree, and with Jim Kelly, there's almost a sense when he's making this movie of like, I shouldn't have any of these three guys in this movie. Like, these three are all, Jim Kelly should be an action star of like the highest caliber. Richard Roundtree should be a leading man doing, the kind of roles that Harrison Ford is getting. And Jim Brown was a legitimate dramatic actor who, should have been doing Shakespeare and that kind of stuff. That was the level he was. And there's this sense that when Williamson's making this movie of like, hey, I got to make this movie with these guys because they're not getting the work they should be getting. And I shouldn't have them in this movie, but I've got them here, and we're going to have a fun time. But
as we get onto Bloodfist III, Forced to Fight, Roundtree's performance, man. I mean, this movie is not worthy of his performance. Like, it's a fun movie. Don't be wrong, I love the movie, but it is not worth. Like, Richard Roundtree has gone, well, Jesus Christ, I've been in however many fucking movies, and the only time I really get to deal with racism on any kind of serious level, outside of obviously playing like characters like Shaft and whatever, which obviously comment on race and the African American experience, et cetera, but the only time I think that Roundtree has ever implicitly sat down and gone, this is who my character is. This is the racial expression he wants to have. This is the world he wants to live in, and these are very clearly the people I don't agree with. And his entire character is very vocal and positive and thoughtful and creative and inventive around the subject of race. And it's baffling to me that it exists in a movie like Forced to Fight, Bloodfist III. Again, great movie for a Bloodfist movie, but everything Roundtree is doing is elevating it to a much higher level. But before we do that, can I just give a few titles quickly, and then
Yes, absolutely.
we'll go
No, I
back
think
to
this
the
would be
movie.
great.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry
for
for
sure.
everyone listening
Yeah.
that I'm bouncing around the place. But I got a My Chauffeur, because it's always good to get a few 80s sex comedies in these things. One that I'd never heard of, which looks like an alien invasion / horror movie called Strange Invaders on the Vestron label. So I'm excited to watch that. Never heard of it before. It's called Strange Invaders. So that's a really good one. Impulse, the Meg Tilly town gets affected by like electroshock thing and all kind of become kind of zombies movie. That's fun. I got Real Men. Oh shoot, I also have Real Men. I got 4 Belushi. I got Real Men as well. I got Real Men. Oh, and talking about African American movies of the 70s, I got Slaughter, Jim Brown in Slaughter, which is awesome. I also got the Seagal movie Marked for Death. Lots of snapped arms in that one. That is an arm snapping cacophony in that film. I got the 80s sleazy Rob Lowe movie Illegally Yours.
Yes. Yes.
Now here are some DTV classics right away. Freeway, the Reese Witherspoon, Kiefer Sutherland movie. Deceptions with Harry Hamlin and Robert Daffy. And it's just a picture on the front with like Hamlin with his shirt open, cradling a woman or whatever. It's so sleazy. It's absolutely phenomenal. There was no way, Matt, that I was not going to leave. That I was going to leave the movie Deceptions, starring Harry Hamlin. Cutting Class, the before he was famous Brad Pitt slasher film. Cat's Eye, which is the anthology film, Stephen King anthology film with James Woods in it. Subway, the Luc Besson movie, which I'm very excited to see, which I haven't seen before, but it's fucking awesome. The Bob Hoskins movie Heart Condition, do you remember that? That was... He's a short, chubby, racist cop, and he's been given the heart of a young, thin, intelligent black guy played by Denzel Washington. And then Denzel Washington comes to him as a ghost.
Right.
You have to like solve Denzel Washington's murder while Bob Hoskins is wrestling with the fact that he's like, I can't believe I've got a black guy's heart. While Denzel Washington has to somehow maintain his dignity as a ghost.
I mean, that's the thing that we take for granted, right? That Denzel Washington's had the career that he's had, but he's had some movies like what you're,
Heart Condition,
Heart Condition, where you're just like, he's, and that was 1990 Heart Condition.
Everyone has to start somewhere, Matt. Everyone has to start somewhere. And if the studio comes to you and goes, listen, Denzel, we've got a Hoskins starring racist comedy. What do you say? Well, you're a ghost.
Right.
And he probably went, well, Bill Cosby did Ghost Dad, and everyone loves Bill Cosby. And I'm like, wait about 30 years. No one will like Bill Cosby. Okay, just finishing up. I got Jean-Claude Van Damme, Cyborg.
Of course,
which is fantastic. American Ninja 3, Blood Hunt.
Oh yes. No Dudikoff there, but we still get some good Steve James. We've got the Shalom Y'all shirt on.
Yes,
fantastic. Yeah.
50-50, one of the last great Cannon movies with Peter Weller and Robin Hayes in it.
Oh yes,
We got Don Johnson in Dead Bang. It's a great straight to video movie. I'm Rutger Hauer in Split Second.
Yeah.
Kickboxer 2.
Oh yes, Sasha Mitchell. Yes, that's another Albert Pyun film. We got a couple Pyuns there. Yeah, a
couple of Pyuns in there, and then Hiding Out, the John Cryer movie. Which the funny thing about that, Matt, have I told you about this? So for years and years and years on the After Movie Diner, I've told the story on my show. I don't know whether I've told it to you yet, but that's fine. For years and years on my show, like every few months, I would get an email from a guy in Australia begging me to cover the movie Hiding Out with John Cryer. And I'm not exaggerating, Matt. begging me, like bribing me, like taking photographs of his VHS cover of Hiding Out and like scanning it and then emailing it to me and being like, have you thought about doing Hiding Out yet? Do you want to watch Hiding Out? I think you should watch Hiding Out. He's left me voicemails rather. Where he's been like, hi, this is I forget his name now. It was Jeffrey. Let's call him Jeffrey. Hi, this is Jeffrey. I was just wondering if you and Jim would love the show. Keep listening. Love the show, but I was wondering if you were going to do Hiding Out anytime. It's a great movie with John Cryer. You should go see it. This went on for years and years and years, and it started off like when it's so funny when you listen to me read out the first email like right. 9 years ago, whatever. I'm so like trying to be polite to all my listeners that I'm like, oh yeah, that sounds really interesting. We'll have to look into it. By the time you skip forward 4 years and I'm still getting emails from the guy, you can just hear me be like, we are never watching Hiding Out. Like we are never in the history of the show ever going to do Hiding Out. Like. And I'm just shitting all over his dreams. Right. I'm like, by the time you get to the later episodes, I'm just like, I've been sent another email about Hiding Out. When will this guy get the message? Because at this point, I've just kind of given up and I'm just insulting my audience. So I left it dangling as a thing. I ended the show, right? I did the last episode before we reignited it. I did the last episode. It was a Donald Pleasance double bill with Jim in the diner. Boom, done. Last ever episode. Done. About a month after the last ever episode, and before I started again, Hiding Out finally came on like Tubi or Amazon or YouTube or wherever I ended up watching it. And I'd weirdly, because I'd picked Dudes up. This is what it was. I'd picked Dudes up on VHS, not knowing what to expect, but really liking the other guy in it. He's always in Don Coscarelli films. I can't think of his name right now. It's John Cryer and
the other guy.
Anyway, him. I really like him. And John Cryer, I can take a leave, but I was like, oh, it's a Penelope Spheris movie. I just recently revisited Wayne's World again, and I was like, okay, I want to see some more Spheris. I'd also watched The Boys Next Door. Isn't that one of hers from like much earlier?
I think it might be. I should know her stuff better because she's one of my favorite directors. I feel like she pretty much formed my childhood in the late 80s, early 90s. But is it Daniel Roebuck? Is that the one you're thinking
Daniel
of?
Roebuck, yeah, I love him.
Yeah, with Glee as well, yeah.
He's really funny in Daniel Roebuck's really funny in Bubba Hotep as one of the Paul. But so anyway, there was a long line to leading to Hiding Out. So it was I'm going to watch Dudes. I'd weirdly got on sort of a John Cryer kick. Found Hiding Out was playing, so I was like, all right, I got to do it. I don't have the show anymore, so I've got to do it. I got to watch Hiding Out. So I watch Hiding Out. It's the pish that I expected it to be. I loved it. Like, I enjoyed it for what it was, but it's no Dudes, right? Dudes is John Cryer's high watermark. But people haven't seen it. Dudes is fucking phenomenal. Dudes is like, it's Dudes and Six String Samurai for like punk, Western, like weird fucking, mad movies with great soundtracks. I loved Dudes. I thought Dudes was awesome. Hiding Out is fine, but in order to do the premise that Cryer is like in his 30s but goes back to high school, or whatever, he's like a 30s Wall Street guy. He's like in his 30s and he's like trading stocks and making lots of money and blah, 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 blah. He has the most, I don't know if it's fake or if John Cryer just grows a weird beard, but he has like this fake glue on 30-something black beard for the first half of the movie, and I could not stop laughing. It was my favorite thing about the whole film. The bit once he gets to high school, it's the usual kind of thing. He's got to help the nerdy kid, get a date, and he's got to, fight off a bully or whatever. He ends up at one point he ends up like living in like the caretaker's cubby at the school. And hanging out there, and the caretaker's like slowly becomes pals with him and stuff. It's just so weird because John Cryer is like the least interesting, charismatic person on the planet, next to TV star Matt Blucas, and and Justin Timberlake. They are three of the blandest.
What happened there?
but many people did, Matt. He had a sizable movie career in the 80s before he took some of that Two and a Half Men ducats.
Right, yeah. No, seeing him with the beard, he looks like the guy who played Booger in Revenge of the Nerds. But when
Only
he was
less funny version.
right,
Yeah.
less right, exactly. That's absolutely amazing. Yeah, like just I think sometimes with these kinds of movies, like seeing them for that novelty is just a trip. But see, one of the things, like I get people that will say like, "Hey, Matt, you should watch this movie. You should watch this or that." And my problem is I just am never able to keep. I can barely keep up with watching the movies. I'm got that I just fall behind on them, and I feel
Yeah.
horrible about it because it's like I'm always telling people, "Yeah, email me with recommendations or with let me know with your and then they say like, "Yeah, here, Matt, I think you should watch this," and I'm like, "Great, I'll watch that," and then it's
Yeah.
like 6 months later, I'm like, that's still in my to watch list on Letterboxd. I probably
Right.
should.
Yeah, and you're probably never gonna. It's much funnier if you never ever watch it. You know what I mean? It's just so much funnier if you never ever watch it. So I watched Hiding Out, and I learned that I should have left it because it's one thing like if it was dudes, right?
Right.
If it was dudes, or if it was Belushi and Real Men, or something like if it was one of those movies where you're like, oh, I totally get it. If you've never seen Real Men and someone goes, just trust me, go watch Real Men. Don't learn anything about it. Just watch Real Men. In fact, watch Real Men 3 times and then come back and talk to me because you'll realize the true genius of existence, right? There are movies like that. There are movies that, like Treasure of the Yankees Effort for me, or Race for the Yankees Effort, because it has many names. That's one that I would say to almost anyone of our interests.
Yeah.
I've said to the guys at the archive when I'm down at the archive in Bridgeport, I've said to, and they haven't heard of Yankees Effort. That's one where I'm like, what? Like, watch it. Don't even don't watch a trailer. Don't think of it. Don't look at the cut. Just watch Yankees Effort. There are certain movies like that, right? That I would probably, if I had any kind of passion, hope, desire, love, or anything left in my dark, black, and rock-like soul, that's probably the kind of thing that I would email movie podcasts about if I was in my 20s. Have you seen, Gremlins 2 is one of the most original sequels ever made, whatever. I would understand it. But having watched Hiding Out, imagine the level of a brain that would be like, no, I've got to tell him every 6 months he's got to learn about this movie Hiding Out. I'm like, I don't though, because I've watched the movie and I'm like, I didn't need to know about it.
Right.
It's not, it's not. I said it's not dudes. I love dudes. Like if he'd recommended dudes to me for 16 years, and I finally went, fine, I'm gonna watch fucking dudes, and then I watch dudes, and I'd be like, oh my god, it's amazing. Right. Then that would be worth it because I'd be like, okay, you've taught me something. But similarly, if someone came up to you and pestered you about, like I said, Six String Samurai or something like that. Like there are plenty of movies that you're like, the regular Joe doesn't know about this film, but they need to know about it. Nobody needs to know about Hiding Out. Let it languish in the 80s, right, where it belongs. Because John Cryer, he is the anti-Belushi, and right. I'll explain why. Nobody cares about Cryer's film career. Even I couldn't muster, more than passing enthusiasm for one of his movies, right? But once he gets on Two and a Half Men, it's Two and a Half Men. It's a whatever cheesy sitcom or whatever, but it's at least reasonably successful, and you understand why, right? It's not like According to Jim. Like for us, Jim Belushi peaks in the 90s, and then he does According to Jim, and we're like, ah. For everyone else, John Cryer peaked, when he got to Two and a Half Men, yeah. And so I'm just saying, like, it's sort of a reverse of Belushi.
Yeah. I mean, the thing for me with Cryer too, with the movie stuff in the 80s, is his biggest role was 16, or not 16 Candles, Pretty in Pink. That's his biggest role.
Oh, and the worst.
Yeah, and he's essentially, and I remember watching with my wife. She's like, "Oh, Ducky, he's harmless or whatever." I'm like, "He's not harmless. Like, if I had a daughter and I had Ducky calling, I would not be like Harry Dean Stanton. I would not be as understanding. I would be like, no. You need to call the cops and you need to get a restraining order on this kid because I can't have him calling the house every 2 minutes, and he shouldn't be following you around at your job. He shouldn't be stalking. I'm
on record, Matt, as saying that if I'm Harry Dean Stanton in Pretty in Pink, the only person I want violating my daughter is James Spader's character.
So, yes,
It's
I agree.
because at least James Spader, as douchey as he is in the film,
Yeah.
is an honest,
Yes.
sleazy fuck, right?
Yeah.
Blaine, fucking Andrew McCarthy, dullest human. I mean, if you think John Cryer is dull, and John Cryer is very dull,
Yeah.
Andrew McCarthy as Blaine
Right.
in I just want a scene. I want the credits to roll, and then I want a scene where Spader comes in, grabs Andrew McCarthy's ankle, yanks him down to the ground, and just Hulk smashes him from side to side, and then wipes his dick on his face and walks off into the sunset. Like I just want Spader.
No,
I want Spader to wipe the floor with it.
Yes. I mean, if that movie had any level of creativity at all, and I know Pretty in Pink, it's a classic. Everybody, Andy Potts, whatever. But the
Annie
way
Potts, you see, again, if you were
Right.
really going to be attracted to anyone in the movie, it
It's
should
Annie
be Annie Potts. Anyway,
Yeah.
okay.
But the way the movie should have worked is that Andrew McCarthy, or that James Spader walks into the prom. There's sort of
Yeah.
like the doors behind him. There's like the fog and the white light behind him, and he's got his
Yes.
feathered hair and he's got a white blazer with the sleeves rolled up, and he just kind of
Somehow his Corvette is parked now in the doorway of the gymnasium with smoke all around it.
Yeah.
And for no reason,
Yes.
a woman in a sequin swimsuit on top of the Corvette revolving behind Spader with smoke and everything. No one knows how that's happened, but it's happened, and he's there, and his hair is all glued and feathered. Carry on, dude. Yeah,
So then Molly Ringwald turns and sees him, and there's a fan blowing her hair as she's like just enraptured with how amazing Spader looks. And
moist, Matt, moist. Moistened Ringwald. That's it's the only type of Ringwald I'm interested in at this point.
And all he does is he just makes that Spader smile, that kind of Spader half smile, and he puts out his elbow just like this, and she just goes up to it and threads her arm through it, and they go into the car. The woman in the sequin dress, she pops in the driver's side, and they sit in the back seat, with the top down. That's how the movie should have ended. And of course Harry Dean Stanton.
Before he leaves, or as he's leaving, with her arm locked around it, 3 or 4 women in the audience, their panties explode, like literally, like, and they're just left cartoon style with like black soot on their legs and their hair all like spiked up and like little smoke coming off them. But it's just as Spader leaves, a number of undergarments explode violently.
That's the movie we should have had. I don't know. Like, again, I always feel like George Lucas is the one who could save cinema for us because of what he did with the Star Wars
could go
movie.
back and Lucas that shit. He could
put that together, put that scene together. I think you put a wig on Spader, because I guess I don't know how you get that part to work now with him being bald, but or just have it be 60-year-old Spader who just shows up with that same outfit on.
Trilby wearing, tiny coffee drinking, lace scarf wearing, flouncy, fat, chubby 60s Spader. Yeah. I think all Spades needs to do now that the blacklist is over is to grow a mustache. Mm-hmm. It's the one thing he's deprived us of.
Yes. Yeah.
Slow burn. Well, he has a mustache with sort of like stubble and shit on it. That's a boring ass movie. But Slow Burn is right. It's fuck me. What was I? But yeah, no, I agree with everything you said, Matt, because I can't think what it was we were talking about.
Perfect. Well, that's a perfect segue for us to do a little Bloodfist III, Forced to Fight.
Forced to Fight. Yeah.
One of the things you were talking about with Don the Dragon Wilson being like that, he's this prolific, actor at this time. And this is sort of like where it starts, where he does the first Bloodfist movie, he does the second Bloodfist movie, and Roger Corman's like, "Oh, you're doing a prison movie? Why don't we call that a third Bloodfist movie?" And just we'll package it that way, and that'll work. And of course, didn't do well in the theater. But you're absolutely correct. I don't know if I should give a synopsis. Really, the only synopsis is that somehow Don the Dragon Wilson's in prison and he's getting attacked by he sees somebody get killed he was supposed to protect. Right. He kills the guy who kills that person. Turns out that guy was well connected.
Horrible beginning.
Yes.
It's just a horrible beginning.
Brutal. It's a brutal beginning. Just to give you a sense of what's happening, the young man is being raped in prison, and they kind of show
larger gentleman.
Which, I mean, the fact that in America we just seem to think that that's a perfectly okay thing, that, oh, you go to prison, you get raped. That's just sort of an understood thing, that prison
It's
guards
not
don't
only
really,
that, Matt, but it's become a joke.
right?
It's
Yes.
become,
Right.
well, don't drop the soap in the showers,
Right.
because someone might sexually abuse you
Right.
violently and against your will. And
Going to prison
that's
is
how
just
you
like,
tell them, ladies and
yeah.
gentlemen. That's how you tell a classic rape joke. Anyway,
Right.
sorry, Karen.
Yeah, no, it's just like this understanding that we Americans have this tolerance for things that just kind of, I
Yeah.
imagine being from England, it must blow your mind, like the things that we tolerate. Like, we think it's perfectly fine that if you go to prison, you get dropped into this Lord of the Flies environment where if you don't become a neo-Nazi, if you're a white person, you get raped, right? Like, we think that's perfectly fine. Like, that's
Yeah.
just how prison should work, and that's perfectly fine. We shouldn't overhaul the prison system or do anything to fix that. We think it's perfectly fine that if you get sick, that you, even if you have insurance, you should be paying exorbitant amounts of money for this. It's perfectly fine.
I'm sorry, so we've had to amputate your leg. The
Right.
cost of amputating a leg to see things is at an all-time high.
Right. We
So not
take
only did you lose a leg, but you'll be losing $5,500.
right. We take all major credit cards, or if you'd like to
Yeah.
work out a payment plan, that's
And I'm like,
perfectly
couldn't you
fine.
just suited it and then sawn it off with a rusty blade or something?
Yeah.
Like, why did sawing my leg off cost 5,500?
Right,
Well, because
exactly.
we've got to,
Well,
there's a lot of bone saw taxes that we have to cover.
exactly
A lot
right.
of
Like,
very
well,
specific
the
bone
cost
saw
of the
based
bone
tax.
saw, the cost of the bone saw is more expensive. That's the thing too. Like, if you ever see like an itemized bill, it's like, I paid
Yeah.
$300 for tongue depressors. Like, why did that cost that much money? Like, that's just. But
Yeah.
again, as Americans, we think this
Yeah.
stuff is perfectly fine.
Perfectly fine.
And it's like, but yet the idea that Don the Dragon Wilson can be a great movie star, whoa,
Yeah.
no, we can't do that. I'm sorry. We just can't, we can't accept him as anything more than a DTV guy. And,
Right.
we don't like his movies, but, prison,
But
that's great.
I have to say, of all the Don the Dragon Wilson movies I have seen, the Bloodfist series maintains a decent level for DTV action, really up until like the sixth or seventh entry. Um, but and I'm very lucky. I have the Bloodfist collection on DVD, which
Oh,
still
nice.
I don't think has not been released on Blu-ray or
No.
in any territory yet. Which is odd because Shout Factory had a lot of Corman's stuff early
Right.
on, and this is a Corman series. So it would have been lovely if there was like a Bloodfist box set out there so that these movies could be rediscovered somewhat. Because certainly, I mean, the first four are all very, very solid. I think people talk about Bloodfist 3 Forced to Fight in slightly loftier terms because of the subject matter and the
Yeah.
way that it's handled. What's interesting about the way that it's handled is that it's mostly handled relatively seriously, except those two characters that are on Richard Roundtree's gang.
Right.
The larger, chubbier dude, and then the only white guy apart from Don Dragon Wilson on his, or well, I mean Don Dragon Wilson is mixed race, but the only Caucasian skinned, let's say, other person on Richard Roundtree's team, and he's these goofy. 1 minute they're goofy kitchen clerks, 1 minute they're goofy laundry guys, 1 minute they're goofy botanists.
Right.
And this prison that has like a botany roof garden.
Right. Right.
What does he say? They do a course in, what is it when they're handing out the thing? Is he's like, where are you going to go? Where are you going to go?
Oh,
And they go,
right.
oh, Poland, you're going to go to. It's not agriculture, but and it's not botany, but it was something like that. It was like a weird
Horticulture.
horticulture. That's
Yes,
it. Yeah. He's like, and you, Jimmy, you're in horticulture.
Right. And then, right, because
Like,
then he.
why is this? What is this prison growing apart from probably
Right,
weed?
exactly. Well, then the idea in the prison, right, is that Dom Wilson has been considered a trouble. He's essentially persona non grata amongst all the gangs because he's killed
Right.
this one guy, and then Richard Roundtree is persona non
Yeah,
grata
so the
amongst.
guy who was raping his friend,
Right.
he ended up killing him. I'm going to forget his name now.
Yeah, was it Lucas? Or was
Lucas,
Lucas?
that was it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and
Uh,
so
yeah.
I think that's what it was, because Blue was the friend. Blue was the guy that ends up.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so yeah, so what they do, because they know that Wilson, like everybody wants to kill Wilson. The idea is if they put him in the cell with Richard Roundtree, who has been causing trouble by filing amicus briefs and whatever, or amicus briefs, well, with with the courts to try to get the prison in trouble for the way that they're doing things. They figure that his Don the Dragon Wilson's trouble will kind of bleed into Richard Roundtree, and he'll either get killed by somebody, or which is eventually he almost does.
Right.
He's wrong place, wrong time. That's what they're hoping for, and so that's just kind of what it is. But it's like Wilson, like to keep up that action movie every 10 to 15 minutes fight scene kind of thing. It's just essentially every 10 to 15 minutes, a gang shows up, they give him a hard time, and he roundhouse kicks them through like sheets and things like that.
Right.
But the fights are like, what's great about this is there's no concern that these people all are great martial artists that are in this prison. It's perfectly fine, and it makes for these really great fight scenes that, like, on top of like the commentary on race and the prison system in America, you've got these great fight scenes at the same time, which, yeah, like you said, and then Richard Roundtree's acting performance is just all of it together. Just makes it a really fascinating movie.
It is, right? Yeah, because it's an action movie. It's a DTV action movie that attempts at its most base level. I'm not gonna give it high praise that it's some kind of real treatise on any of this stuff. Also, especially considering, at one point they're meant to be vicious, white Nazi fundamentalist guys, and then the next minute they're seemingly happy doing deals left and right with the black gang. And in fact, none of that makes any sense at all. But no, it at least attempts to be about something, which is always my thing, is that the reason why splashing about in the B movie or DTV pool is always so much fun and always so much more interesting is that invariably it's where directors often only make one movie. So they kind of put all the thoughts, opinions, morals, messages, whatever in it, even if they're making a schlocky murder movie or a schlocky action movie. They're going to be like, well, let's try and put as many bits of importance in here as we can. Roger Corman is known for doing that left and right. There's always feminist messages or racial messages or whatever in his films. He is very pro-diversity and pro-woman and pro-gay rights and everything. So he does put a lot of that in his movies, and it's nice to see other filmmakers like Jeffrey Bassoon. Sorry, Ole Sassoon. Ole Sassone. Maybe it's Ole Sassone. I don't know. Anyway, Ollie Sasson. It could be Ollie Sasson. But whoever.
We shouldn't be remiss in saying that he directed the Corman Fantastic Four movie that
never got made, but did get made, but never got made, but kind of made. I have it on a Blu-ray disc.
It's out there. It's what's amazing about it, and of course, it looks like if you look at his bio, it's a lot of syndicated TV that he does after that. But the thing with that Fantastic Four movie, and I think just Corman in general, Corman is like a little different from like a Lloyd Kaufman, or like Troma kind of deal, where Corman, like you said, he brings a certain sensibility to his movies, but he knows what he's doing. He knows what the movie is ultimately it is, and there's certain rules that he has that I feel like are ones that modern movie makers should follow more. Like, for example, the movie can't be longer than 88 minutes. And that was because he didn't want to have to split into a 12th reel, right? When he was selling movies by reels. Well, 88 minutes is a really fantastic runtime for a movie, and especially for a B movie. And if you watch like all these Bloodfist movies clock in around like 85 to 88 minutes. You
don't need more than that, Matt. You don't need more than that. Horror movies, action movies, and comedies. At lean 90 minutes, you've won me over. But these people keep saying like, oh, have you seen Midsummer? And then I look at the runtime and I'm like, it's 3 hours.
Right.
It's 3 hours. The They did. This is what I love, and I love being having read up so much on comedy, because very often comedy writers are the most analytical.
Right.
But John Cleese did a lot of testing when he was making Fish Called Wanda, and also when they were making Python movies. And what he noticed, working with people who are trained in this stuff and human psychologists, stuff like that, is that humans can laugh or be scared or be excited at a certain level for about 45 minutes. That's roughly the time. So if you're watching a comedy, let's say there's one of the ones that springs to mind was like South Park, the animation. I went to see that. It was almost too much, because after about like 50 minutes, I'm like, I can't. Like, I know this bit is funny, but now it's just annoying because I'm not laughing anymore. I'm just kind of being like, And so something like, I always use 4 Weddings and a Funeral as a good example, right? Because it's 3 weddings, funny, funny, funny. Funeral gives you that moment, like you have that 45 minutes, you have the funeral, it gives you a chance to like breathe a little bit, relax, feel another emotion other than laughter. There's the odd like little joke, but it's kind of mild. The movie kind of calms down at that point, and and then end with another big hilarious wedding. It's sort of the perfect trajectory of how a comedy movie should go. And comedy movies that try to be comedies like all the way through, like often fail, because by the third act you're sort of like, I can't. You need to give me a minute. You know what I mean? And then when you get to these fucking Apatow comedies that are like 2 hours and 35 minutes, I'm like, first of all, Apatow, you're not that interesting. Like, nothing you've got to say about being a schlubby, middle-aged, shitty husband is of no fucking of interest to most people anymore, Apatow, you hack. But making movies at 2 hours and 35 minutes, it's fucking baffling, right? Yeah. But I feel the same way about horror. So everything I'm saying about comedy, where you kind of like laugh 45 minutes, then you need a breast, and then you can come back and like laugh at the end. The same thing should go for horror movies. If you don't have those scenes where it's daylight and the kids are walking through the school and there's no menace and everyone's just talking about, who they want to fuck or whatever at the big party at the end of the movie or whatever, you need those scenes, because then when it goes back to like darkness and spookiness and people with knives and shit, you can go, oh shit, yeah, okay, right, we're back in a horror movie. Because you can't, if you just show me grotesque images or scary images, after about 20 minutes, I'm going to be like, all right, you know what I mean? You can't really show me. I've either become desensitized to the grossness or I've become desensitized to being scared, right? And so you've really got to like, leave that stuff scattered throughout the movie. And I suppose the same could be said for action films. The one of the famous, and I don't think it's a Corman thing, but it's that every 10 minutes something needs to happen. Maybe that is a Corman. I mean, yeah,
it's a PM. I think it's a PM thing, but it even really, I think so PM would always say we needed to have a car blow up every 10 minutes, or we did a fight every 10 minutes. But I think it even goes back to musicals, where like musicals, right? You had to have a musical number every like 15 minutes.
Right.
And it seems like all the other genres kind of play off of that. If they're correct, if they're done correctly, they play off of that.
88 minutes. It's the perfect length for a horror movie, perfect length for an action film, perfect length for a comedy. If you can't tell a story in 3 acts in 90 minutes, then you shouldn't be allowed. Like Scorsese and Francis Ford Coppola and Spielberg to some extent, or whatever. Yeah. At this point, at this time in their career, if they want to start doing 4-hour movies and being self-indulgent assholes, that's absolutely fine. Like, whatever. Because I'll just go back to watch Taxi Driver, or I'll go back and watch, Mean Streets or whatever, and I'll be perfectly happy with the shorter, snappier, concise, strong storytelling stuff that Marty made when he was younger. Whatever he's doing now, like, fine, just let him do it, right? Yeah. But it's when these guys come out of the gate, like their first time or second time or third time film directors, and they're like, everyone wants to watch everything I'm doing for the next 3 hours, please. And you just go, I hate you. I hate you 10 minutes into your film. But by 3 hours into your film, I've murdered you, your entire family, your pets. I've shot your dog in the face with a flare gun. That's how angry I am after 3 hours of you being like, no, it's still going to be scary. I'm like, it wasn't scary for the first 15 minutes. So if you think in 3 hours you're somehow, no, I'm building up to it. Well, stop fucking building up to it. Hire a fucking editor and they'll build it for you. Anyway, that's why we love GTV Classics, because they're the right fucking length, Matt. Huzzah.
Yeah, I have a rule for 3 hour movies, and this is my. I mean, now, granted, like you said, Scorsese, if he wants to make 3.5 hour movie, that's fine. I'll wait till it's on streaming, and I'll watch it over 4 settings. But
I'll watch it over 7 weeks.
For 7 weeks, exactly. But my rule is that Ran, the Kurosawa film, which is his take on King Lear in medieval Japan, that's over 3 hours long. So if you're Kurosawa and you're making King Lear set in medieval Japan, knock yourself out. 3 hours long. Go ahead and do it.
Because you kind of go, well, what am I in the mood for today?
Yeah.
I think I'm kind of in the mood to spend 3 hours with King Lear. That's fine. That's absolutely fine, because King Lear's got nothing other than to just be, beautiful, filled with pathos, dramatic. It's just got to be something that I envelop myself in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And maybe learn something from. But fucking Midsummer,
exactly.
It's a feminist take on the Wicker Man.
Exactly. Or even like the new Batman movie. I keep saying, like, I want to see if I want to watch that new Batman movie. And then I go on IMDb and I see 3 hours and I'm like, I can't do it. I mean, Batman in 1966 was an hour and a half long and they had 4 villains. 4 villains. One of them was Cesar Romero. One of them was Burgess Meredith. Right? I mean, these are big actors. Cesar Romero, and you got it done in an hour and a half, or whatever length it was. I don't know.
In that movie, wasn't that Bat Shark repellent in that movie?
Yes, Bat Shark repellent. There's some days you just can't get rid of a bomb. He's running around with this big bomb. It's like that is amazing filmmaking. And granted, there's if that's the Batman I like, I shouldn't like the 3 hour Batman. I get it. Like, they didn't make the 3 hour Batman for me because I'm like, some days you can't get rid of a bomb.
What if Burt Ward and Adam West back in the day had made a 3 hour
You're right.
Batman? It was all the same cast. It was everything.
Right. It's all of them.
Same costumes, but it was really moody and serious, and everyone sat around like crying about Bruce's parents and stuff, and fucking Alfred's in the background being like, "No, Master Bruce, let me give you some words of obscure wisdom."
All right. So I was wrong. The Batman movie was an hour and 45 minutes long. So 105 minutes. It's the same length as the Marvels, right? And everybody's like talking about the Marvels being like, it's whatever. Gen Z didn't want to watch the Marvels or whatever the reason.
Why didn't they want to watch the Marvels?
I have no idea. That's I guess
so bored with everything.
Yes, but like an hour and 5 minutes. Okay, so it was an hour and 5 minutes. Still, you had 4 villains. You had Lee Merriweather as. I mean, I get Zoe Kravitz as Catwoman. I get it. She's the daughter of Lenny Kravitz and Lisa Bonet. As us growing up in the 80s and 90s, they were 2 of the coolest people ever. So their daughter is cool, and it's great that she's Catwoman. But Lee Merriweather, former Miss America, Barnaby Jones, right, as Catwoman, is just absolutely amazing. And then, I mean, again, Cesar Romero from the original Ocean's 11, couldn't be bothered to shave his mustache, so they just painted over it.
Yeah, who needs to shave it? Just paint over it, man.
Yes. I mean, and so
I was having this conversation the other day about. Sorry, I'll let you finish. Sorry.
No, it's okay. No, it's all right.
No, you were.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was having this conversation the other day about like the Irishman and Indiana Jones, right?
Yeah.
Where they've taken like super old guys, right? And they've CGI'd their face to all be younger and whatever, right? And when you watch it, you go, it's really weird. There's a young Robert De Niro with like because old men, they shrink, right? So their ears get bigger and their shoulders get like hunched and bony, and their arms become like Grover's arms in Sesame Street, where it's all hands, but really thin, like forearms, and you know what I mean? And yet they have like a young face on them, and it looks really fucked up because you're like, why do they have big bobbly heads and large ears and shit? But then they've got like young Harrison Ford face or young Joe Pesci. It was like looking at Oscar the Grouch with a Joe Pesci mask on. It was weird. It was weird. Matt, I didn't like it. And I'm just saying, what I would rather, this is what we were talking about the other day, because we were just saying, who cares about like painting over the whatever. I would rather, right, I would rather they just told another fucking story.
Right.
But if you want to tell that story, I would rather that the movie stars The Irishman, Martin Scorsese, whatever like that, and then up comes a black screen with white writing on it, and the writing just goes, all of the actors in this movie are bloody old, but they all wanted to play these parts, all of whom in real life were a lot younger. We've given the actors wigs and a little bit of makeup to help you suspend disbelief. But just accept it that when they talk about being in their 40s, but they look like they're in their 80s, just accept it. Because you know what's going to happen after this movie's released? Al Pacino and Robert De Niro are going to become fathers again. Right. Grotesque, knobbly, wrinkly, Grover-armed parents who, when they pick up their babies, their wrists will snap due to calcium deficiency.
You know what's funny? Somebody posted this thing talking about that, them having kids now. Somebody posted this thing that like there's some person in their 20s that was born in the 20s who I guess is still alive, whose father, I guess their father was no, I guess like their father was like kind of old the way De Niro and Pacino are, and so he was the father was alive during Abraham Lincoln, he was alive when Abraham Lincoln was assassinated, and they were saying like, this guy who's still alive, his dad was 16 when and I was like, in like the late in 2133 or something, this daughter that Al Pacino or that De Niro's, that somebody's going to be on Twitter saying that like she's in her 90s now. Her dad was 15 when JFK was assassinated. Like that's what we're going to,
Yeah. No, you're like, right. That's exactly what it's like. Is that these guys who were alive when JFK was assassinated, their offspring are going to be like living on Mars and having to give blowies to Elon Musk every third Friday as some kind of penance for not, I don't know, making enough money or something. He'll just Elon Musk and his all-female Mars colony that he's going to, and he's going to be, and then they'll like CNN in an interview, and and they'll be like, so we hear that you've got nothing but incredibly attractive 18-year-olds in spangly jumpsuits on your Mars colony. Is that true? And Elon Musk will be, do his usual lies and bullshit and whatever, where he tries to take a perfectly horrendous thing and make it perfectly reasonable. And he'll go, no, well, what you have to understand is that all the women are picked because of high intelligent things. They don't use as many deodorants as men or whatever it is. Like he'll come up with all these ideas. And then everyone on CNN will be like, yes, Elon Musk, you're completely correct. No, your skin-tight, leather-clad, spangly beauties in a Mars colony. No, that's perfectly reasonable. And in a way, we were anti-feminist to even bring it up. You know what I mean? Because that's what seems to happen. Every time Elon Musk opens his mouth and says something stupid, a bunch of news people orgasm and go, no, fucking Musk. He's got his finger on the zeitgeist of the... And I'm like, you mean he's fucking taking my tax dollars to fund his cock rockets so that he can go take a bunch of sleazy ladies up to Mars? No, Musk, no. I say no to thee.
So the thing about Musk that I will say, and I never thought I would say this about Musk, because for the most part he's an ignoramus whose dad owned an emerald mine, and that's why he's rich, right? But here's the thing he did that I think is intelligent: is he created this whole like $8 right, Twitter thing.
Yeah.
And essentially what he now has is a list of people that were dumb enough to give him $8 for a blue check mark on Twitter. And now he can say, how else can I exploit these people? So now he's come up with this banking thing. He's like, well, now I've got a cadre of like millions of people, or however, tens of thousands, or whatever it is, hundreds of thousands of people that were dumb enough to give me $8 for this.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll let me do their banking for them. They'll put all their money in my Twitter bank, my X bank that I'm creating. He's just going to create all of this stuff for them to just, they're going to be completely penniless, but they're going to go talk about how great Musk is and how they want to buy a Tesla.
I've never understood. Matt, I won't. Like, there are certain books and certain movies that everyone has seen, right? Or everyone has read, right? Whether it's kids, fairy tales, nursery rhymes, Hans Christian Andersen kind of stuff, and the Brothers Grimm kind of stuff. These kind of things that everyone's read about, and then there are the movies or whatever that depict greed and depict extreme wealth and depict everything else as evil and abhorrent, right? And then you have any number of religious texts will talk about like the rich being scum, right? You've got James Bond movies in which every single villain is a fucking like capitalist, megalomaniacal fucking want to go to space with a laser and kill half the people fucking lunatic, right? Meaning every single creative outlet of humanity since the writings of the Bible, right? And before, right, have basically gone, you know what? Rich people fucking suck. I'm poor and I'm writing a story because rich people have just fucking fucked me off so much that all I can do is write the story about what utter bastards they are, right? And then people have done that throughout their entire lives. From the fat cat imagery to Wall Street to the what's his name in Daredevil, the
Kingpin
or whatever, right? Capitalist and unbridled greed and whatever is always condemned and always wrong, right? How is it, Matt, that after thousands of years of people being like rich people are bastards, we're living in the only fucking time where people are like, yes, rich people. What is it that you need, rich people? Oh, you want to build a colony on Mars with a giant laser, and you want to put your cock in the end of the laser and the American flag in the other end, and just fucking go to town on it on national television while on Mars fucking a giant space laser with the American flag. Oh, that's what you want to do? I think that's perfectly reasonable. It's thousands and millions of taxpayers' dollars for you to be able to fund your giant penile nonsense. And and everyone's just like, yeah, I think that rich people, it's fantastic. Look at the way that the rich people give back. And I'm like, yeah, they could have paid their taxes for 50 years. That would have been nice.
I think people don't realize
the dollars, and they're like, you know what? I'm going to give $1 million to a golf charity. Like,
exactly.
I don't need to give it to a golf charity. I needed to pay taxes for 50 years.
Well, it's like here in Philadelphia, and probably the same in like New York or any city. It's like people are just like, God, the subway sucks here. I can't stand the subway. So then someone's like, okay, let's spend $2.5 billion to fix up the subway. Oh, no, we can't do that. That's a waste of taxpayer money. Why are we doing that? Right. It's like, if you just made like one corporation pay its share of taxes, it would cover that.
It would fund the subway.
But everybody's like, no, let Musk have all of it, or Bezos have all their tax breaks, not pay any taxes. Apple don't pay taxes, whatever. But we do not want you to fix the subway system for $2.5 billion, even though we're going to complain about it every day on Twitter and talk about how horrible the subway system is. But the moment you propose to fix it, it's a waste of money. It's a horrible use of taxpayer money. I can't have you do that. Yeah. Again, Americans, just the ideas that they come up with. It's like there's certain things that I've found, like with Europeans, and I'm kind of being a Europhile or anything like that, but there's certain things that Europeans do that I do kind of wonder about Americans. Like today, one of my coworkers was talking about how in Switzerland, they wanted to have like the largest toast Like so, it's like 1,100 people in a bar in Switzerland, all
Wait,
getting
wait,
free
wait.
beer.
The largest toast
The whole-
sounds like
Oh no!
a
Oh yeah,
giant
not like the
bread.
bread, not the bread. No, but like cheer. Yeah, like toasted. Yeah. So they want to have like the largest amount of people
Wait
like
a minute.
clinking
We must
glasses.
get the largest toast.
Bread. That's it. Making the biggest piece of bread. So, but they're
Sorry.
just this bar's just giving away free beer, and I'm like,
Yes.
it would be illegal. There's no state in America that would allow
Right.
a bar to give out free beer as much as possible to 1,160 people. It's just
Right.
because it's the
But
idea.
there's
you
nowhere
put-
to go. There's nowhere to get hurt in Sweden.
Right,
I mean,
right.
unless you fall over a moose or something. There's like there's nothing going on. I mean, I love it. I want to go visit, and I'm very pro it. But
Right.
what you learn as you get older is that human beings need stuff going on.
Right, yeah.
Otherwise, they do stuff like, well, how about we get together and have the largest toast? It sounds fun. And I'm like, well, no, it doesn't sound fun. It sounds bananas. Actually, it sounds like you're about to have a giant sandwich. But
Well,
okay.
part of it too, I guess, is it's not really a big deal in Switzerland if everybody can just walk home. And I guess
Right.
that's the other problem is in America. It's like you can't have that many people drinking because there's no way that because you can't have that many Ubers taking people home. So everybody's going to drive at some point. They're all going to run into each other and crash, and so it's like
there's a phone system in Sweden. This is absolutely true. There's a telephone number you can call that's called Phone a Swede, and you call it up, and you will be put through to everyone's phone in Sweden. I guess is on some kind of list. I mean, how many people are in Sweden? Like a few hundred? Like probably not a lot of people. I look up Sweden. It's like
I think it's like literally like 7 million people. I think if you grow up speaking Swedish, if only 7 million other people are going to speak your language, that's why they all have to learn English, I guess. Because
No, I'm kidding, Matt. It's not the best language. Swedish is a beautiful language for the few people who care.
I mean,
so what was I saying? Oh yeah, so you phone a random Swede, you dial this number, the number goes blah, 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 and then like attaches you to a random Swede in the middle of you don't know where, and then he has to talk to you for a minute and answer like your questions. I want that, Matt. I want a number. Why don't we need to devise a number? Well, here's a number: 347-669-0053. Call that number and leave a voicemail for a random Brit. And then I'll maybe call you back if you leave me your telephone number, and I'll make raspberries down the phone at you.
Yes. Yeah, people should call that's the after movie diner line, right? That's your speak.
That's the one that our mutual friend Marge keeps calling.
Marge is always calling about complaining. Marge, yes, exactly.
Always
complaining. So, yeah, people should call that and just riff or just do just like it. I mean, yes, obviously, if you call every time requesting hiding out, like that might be, but yeah, it's like things like that, like are just like easy things for people to do. Just like hey, just go and speak quick, but just call and just
call people in Sweden. In fact, I'm going to get the Swedish number so that I can call a random Swede. I don't care. I'll pay the fees. One thing I wanted to bring up about Bloodfist III Forced to Fight. I was trying to find a segue, and I'm like, there are no Swedish people.
We'll just go.
My favorite thing about Bloodfist III Forced to Fight was when they had to introduce all the gangs, because I couldn't understand. I was trying to think if the writer had like any means, like any meaning, any consistency behind the names, but he doesn't. The names are as follows: Stark, Blue, Wheelhead. One of my favorite. He goes, "Hi, I'm Wheelhead." It's just like I was watching the film and I was like, but of course you are.
Played by Rick Dean, played classic B movie guy. Rick Dean is Wheelhead, and he is every bit the Wheelhead you'd expect him to be. When he gets hit in the head at one point, and he's got like this bandage, and he's walking around with this dopey look on his face. Yeah, he's fantastic.
He is fantastic, but it was just
Wheelhead.
Wheelhead, and I just heard Sean Connery from The Rock go, "But of course you are." Wheelhead, Goddard, Taylor, Diddler, Pisani, Leadbottom, Tony D, Clint, Sporty Black, which I don't know that's on the up and up, Connie, Stewart, Champ, Weird Willie, Chicago, French Fry, and Inmate Palmer. So it was always this wonderful thing. They would walk into a jail cell and then be like, hey, this is young Bibbly Bob. This is ancient crab face. This is old leather hands. This is teeth. This is Alan. But there was always just like someone with a normal name. This is Jeff. This is Biggity. Whoops, mama. This is Blancmange Pants. You know, like, wait, why was he called Jeff? Like, why does everyone have a nickname except Jeff? Oh, well, Jeff's not my real name. My real name's Mark. So wait, Jeff is your nickname? Yes, Jeff is your nickname. It's because I've only killed one person and his name was Jeff. So they nicknamed me Jeff. Oh, okay then. I don't know what that was going.
No, well, and of course, Don the Dragon. This is the first time you play somebody who isn't Jake Ray, right? He's Jimmy Boland in this, which I didn't understand that either. Like, they could have just made him Jake Ray, and we would have been like, he's in prison now. Okay, that's fine, you know.
No, I mean definitely, because I think, you know, because even as you go into the fourth one, which we're not doing just yet, but like, the guy in the fourth one could easily be the guy from the third one.
Right.
You know, he could come out of prison, go work for a car repo company, ba-dum. Like, do you know what I mean? Like that makes enough sense. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
It makes enough sense. But it's always that thing where if he'd been Jake Ray throughout the whole thing, right? It would have had to have got to the point where Don the Dragon Wilson being beaten up by his 58th goon of the day or whatever would have to look at the camera and go, why does this keep fucking happening?
Exactly. That's a good point. Because when you get into number 4, which we'll talk about, we'll start in a bit here, where it becomes the whole me against the world thing, where this is kind of like the first piece of that, where it's him against the world, but it's not quite the same because he doesn't have like, you know, it's like, he's in prison and he does start to, you know, he befriends Richard Roundtree, who respects him because he's read the Malcolm X biography, and you know, right. And I also love the fact that he's just sitting in the cell with Richard Roundtree, who's got all these books, right? Because Richard Roundtree, he's learning for his time in prison. He's trying to learn about the legal system and stuff. So he's got all these books, and Don the Dragon Wilson just is in the cell, and Richard Roundtree's out, and he's like, I'm just gonna grab this book and start reading it. And I just love that idea that like, I'm, you know, it's his stuff, but I'm just going to start rooting through it, like, because, you know, I'm the hero, I guess, and I can, you know. And Richard Roundtree, of course, tells him, like, you know, be nice if you asked before you picked up the books, and then like later they, you know, he ends up
shit.
Right, exactly.
He doesn't say that, ladies and gentlemen. He just said you should ask and put the fucking book down.
Right.
Yeah.
But I mean, Roundtree, you're right. Like Roundtree does like. Because the previous 2 movies, you know, they're shot in the Philippines, and you get like some of those actors like Vic Diaz or Joe Marie Aviano or whatever, like, who are just like these really kind of great thespians from the Philippines that bring a different tenor to the proceedings. But there isn't a Richard Roundtree, and I don't think we get anybody close to Richard Roundtree until we get Stephen Williams in the 7th one, where he plays the Marvosa character. But even he's not Richard Roundtree level. He's just like a really solid character actor. Richard Roundtree. It's like he knocks the role out of the park, but it gives this thing a tenor that, like you said, it's you know, why he's here. You know, you kind of feel bad almost that he's in this, you know, dingy prison movie. You know, yeah.
No, I mean definitely. Richard Roundtree here gets the best character, the best lines, the best delivery, and gives the best performance in this entire film. And it's almost jarring going from a Don the Dragon Wilson Bloodfist fight, which tend to be they're not impressive, but it's I'm sure the choreography is good because there's enough there for them to make something entertaining out of it. But I feel like the directors or cinematographers don't know what they're doing. I feel like, rather than it being the martial arts or the athletes on display, and all of these movies feature not just Don the Dragon Wilson, world champion kickboxer, but lots of other high-ranking and high-scoring kickboxers and martial artists, which is a lot of fun to kind of spot the the famous kickboxer or whatever in the film. but I forget what I was saying. But yes, what was I saying?
No, I think you're right because
I totally forgot what I started.
no, 'cause I know what you're saying because this doesn't look like it's like when we get into the next movie with
Yeah,
with Art Camacho as the fight choreographer.
right.
The fighting looks like a different level. And of course, we get Gary Daniels stuff like that, but they don't
Yeah,
really have like an Art Camacho like the Dom the Dragon Wilson fights. They almost look like he's doing an exhibition where he's like just
right.
doing roundhouse kicks and things like that. And it's not
Yeah,
somebody swings at him and he ducks and then he does and then it's like a shot of him doing this fantastic roundhouse kick. And
yeah. But
you're
I
right.
also think that the directors don't. Um, they don't know how to. They don't know how to film it so that or edit it so that the movements are consistent. Like you'll
Right.
see in a wide shot him do a roundhouse kick to someone's face. It'll basically almost hit their face in the wide shot. And then in the close up, it'll be like, a few inches away from their face, still coming in, and then it'll be in slow motion. And that's fine. You get used to it. You're like, oh, it's a B movie fight scene. It's absolutely fine. And the fights in Bloodfist 3 and 4 are actually a lot of fun. Like they are a lot of fun. But you do kind of wish, like, who edited this? You know what I mean? Because all fight scenes, the less you move the camera, and the more you have fluid, strong movements with the camera, and the less cutting you do, the better the fight scene.
Yeah.
Even when you think of something like The Raid, which is almost entirely handheld, at no point do you get dizzy, because he knows how to keep the camera still, hide the cuts well, etc., etc. But there's other films that, and these B movies are a little bit like this, where we're like, well, let's do a close up, but have the shaky cam, but have slow mo, but have the foot not in the same place that it was in the wide shot, and you kind of go, oh, okay. So you cut to this like shaky, like weird shot with his foot coming up to the guy's face, and you're like, all right, and that's fine. You get into the flow of it, but I wish there was a better. I wish I could re-edit it, man. Is what I'm saying.
Exactly. No,
But
for
I'm also
sure.
can't be bothered.
Exactly. Yeah, for sure. But I think you're right. Like from a B movie standpoint, this movie it sort of ticks all the boxes, right? That it's a Corman produced. Wilson is a great action. He's still kind of building as that action
Yeah.
lead. He's building off those first two Bloodfist movies. And so we're gonna, and this is around the time he does Ring of Fire. So now he's kind of starting to move into PM. So he's doing like PM and Corman or New Conquered, which is really an interesting thing there to see him like really start to grow in that 90s space. So he's got that.
A foot in both camps.
Exactly. Yeah. And he's just like making a lot of stuff. And then, of course, the Richard Roundtree piece. But I think, prison films, the thing with prison films is they tend to be this kind of sloggy thing because it's really just, for the most part, prison films are just, hero tries to fight back, gets beat up by the guards. Hero tries to fight back, gets beat up by the guards. This was a little different because the guards don't really play as much of a part in it. Like they kind of show up maybe to kind of clean up the mess after, but they don't really like beat up Wilson so much. He's really dealing it more from the prison, and I think that's a part of it. It's like really, it's really a clear action film in a prison, which we don't always see, and that's one thing I did appreciate about it.
There's three gangs, right? There's the sort of militant African American gang, the militant white supremacist gang, and then Richard Roundtree's that is a very pro African American, pro black gang. And he, espouses the wisdoms of Malcolm X and Martin Luther King and things like that. But they are not. They're not picking sides. They're sort of in the middle, and they're they have their token Italian guy, and they have Don Wilson, and they're happy with that. They're like that's a good mix. They have the comic relief guys, who I think is the Italian guy. Is that Brad Blaisdell?
Might be, yeah, it might be because that's one of the things with these movies, right? Is you get these actors who came along before IMDb and then weren't working
enough
after
for them to
IMDb
become-
that never
yeah.
uploaded pictures to the to their their page. You either get those or you get like the very low budget movies where the actor never bothered,
Right. And then you've
but-
got John Cardone as the Diddler, who is the poor man's Michael Pollard, right?
Right, yes.
Like in any other movie, like if this was the Stallone prison movie, this would be Michael C. Pollard, right?
Right, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he'd be like, yeah, And what's really odd about this movie, it has such a weird mixed politic throughout the whole film. But the fact that pedophilia is treated so empathetically.
Yes.
It's sort of baffling, because there's literally a sequence in this movie. Well, okay, so first of all, it's hilarious. First of all, you get the visitation scene, right?
Right.
And the camera is panning around the room to various people saying hello to their loved ones or their dog or whatever like that. And then it cuts, and there is this large, overweight man hunched over on a bench, blithely watching a little girl in a summer dress spin and spin and spin. And Matt, I could not stop laughing. I was like, what is this? Like, of all the things they could have cut to, they cut to this obscenely obese man, like hunched over, like watching this girl twirling. And then in comes the Diddler, and he's eyeing the little girl in the dress. I'm like, this is going to get really problematic. Yeah. He has sort of a little Bo Peep kind of fantasy for a second. And then Don the Dragon Wilson comes in and like snaps him out of his pedophilic trance or whatever. and he starts to cry, and Don's like, we've got to just, try each step every day, kind of like some kind of cod wisdom type thing. And then takes this like convicted child molester under his wing, like literally under his wing, and walks him out while he's crying, being like, you can be stronger than this disease or whatever. And I'm like, he fucked kids. Like, what are you talking about? How is this okay? But then by the end of it, the Diddler is like, one of the heroes. He's in the gang. He's, helping people out, whatever it is. And I'm like, wait, what happened? Why is the Michael C. Pollard, but not Michael C. Pollard, like now, like, why am I invested in his happiness?
Right. He's like a cross between Michael C. Pollard and Kurtwood Smith. It's like a diminutive Kurtwood Smith, like from RoboCop. Yeah. They just made him like as diminutive as possible. And
they took all the air out of him.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's like at the end of the end of RoboCop when he's like in the like ooze and stuff like that. And instead of like blowing him up, they just like took him out of the ooze and they reconstituted him, and they're like throwing him in Bloodfist III. The
other one would be what I call freaky little toad-faced man. Right. Who's the guy he's the priest in Phantasm 2 who loses an ear. He's the journalist in Rage, the Gary Daniels movie.
Oh, right.
He's the journalist in that. He appears in the first Avengers movie as the German who stands up to Loki in the courtyard when Loki first appears in the first Avengers movie. He's in that. And I call him Freaky Little Toad-Faced Man. But he's a sort of Michael C. Pollard type as well. Right. I don't know his real name. Oh, I think his real name is like Kenneth Tiger, I think.
Oh, Kenneth Teague or something. Or like, Or Tiger, yeah. I think, okay. Yeah. Because I actually have to confess.
Phantasm 2. Look up Phantasm 2. And the funny thing is on IMDb, his picture on IMDb is so much the happy little toad-faced man. It's fucking hilarious. I'll find him. Hang on a second. I'm gonna find him, dude. I know this. You'll have to edit this out. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I always keep because I'm always doing this myself. So I'm
Kenneth Tiger.
Oh, yeah, Kenneth Tiger. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Yes, I know who you're talking about. Yes.
Yeah, he's happy little toad-faced man. I mean, look at that picture right there on his IMDb. Vote for Scripps. And look at his face. If he isn't the happiest little toad-faced man you've ever fucking saw in your life. He's
Yeah,
just a happy little toad-faced man.
this guy has done so many things too. Like he's done everything. Like
Yeah.
he's, you name it, and he's been happy little toad face guy in that movie, in that show,
He's
or that.
even happy little toad-faced man in Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. He's still going to this day,
So,
ladies and germs.
so thinking about him, because you mentioned he was in Rage, he's also in Riot, but he also did another
Is
PM.
he in No, he's. Wait, am I getting that wrong? Is he in Riot, not Rage? Wait
He
a
was in
minute.
both. He's actually in both films.
He's in both films?
Yeah, so he actually plays a Harry Johansson in both films. I wonder if it's the same. He plays a Harry in both films. I wonder if it's the same character.
That would be hilarious if it was the same character, and at no point in the other movie did he go, wait, this guy looks surprisingly like the other guy we were all chasing.
Exactly right. Yes. But here's the one he did. He plays Sheriff Todd in Hollywood Safari, which is a PM flick with Don the Dragon Wilson. It's like a kids movie that I ended up reviewing for the site because I want to do all the Don the Dragon Wilson films.
Right.
And Hollywood Safari. So I guess he did quite a bit of work with PM. I didn't quite realize that, but
that's fantastic. So he's acted in other Don the Dragon Wilson films, and in this one. So what I want to know then is, in this one, why couldn't they get Kenneth Tiger to play the role of the Diddler, assayed in this movie by John Cardone?
Yeah.
Why didn't they get Kenneth Tiger? Because that's the list. Michael C. Pollard,
Right.
He's Stallone level,
Right.
right? Kenneth Tiger is PM Entertainment, Don the Dragon Wilson, Jeff Speakman level. So who's this John Cardone? He's Frank Zagarino level, really. If anything, he's playing above his weight in a Don the Dragon Wilson, Richard Roundtree movie. Right. He's out of his depth, out of his element.
Yeah, the Michael Pollard. I remember he was in a Wings Hauser film, and this was back when I first started my
more
site.
Than one, I think.
Yeah. I first started my site and I didn't know anything about getting screenshots, so I would just like hot link them from other people's sites. And some guy pinged me. And he's like, "Hey, I reviewed this movie too. I noticed that the images were somewhere." Like, "Oh, I took your images. Yeah, sorry about that." I was like, because now I know, because I don't really care if people take my images. I was like, I just just did a screen grab. But it was that guy, Michael Pollard. That was I can't remember what the movie was, but it was one that had, it was like a. Maybe it was The Art of Dying. I think it might have been The Art of Dying, which is one that you've got to see for Wings Hauser.
I'm still trying to find it, dude. It's very hard to find.
Yeah, I think it might be on Plex. I think Plex might have. I could take a look. Oh, you know where it is? YouTube. There's a guy on YouTube who has a bunch, and I think I might have it on my playlist that I created for that.
Okay, but, I'll look it up because I'd love to watch it. I would really love to watch it.
Yeah, he plays a man named Delbert, Michael Pollard, Delbert. And it's every bit the Delbert that you would want it to be.
Right.
Yeah.
I just think it's hilarious that we've really not talked much about the movie. Well, I suppose we have. We've said that the fight scenes are pretty decent. Right. They're about every 10 minutes. That it's racially charged.
Yeah.
And not always in a terrible way. Sometimes in a fairly enlightened way. Richard Roundtree is amazing in it. Yeah. The fights are okay. We've said that already. It's a B movie that's about something. Everyone loves a B movie that's about something. It's directed by a guy whose name rhymes with bassoon, I'm assuming. And yeah, it's a good fun movie. I enjoy it. It's possibly my favorite of the Bloodfist, although I like Part 4 quite a bit as well.
Yeah, Part 4 coming up, and Part 7 is like a special place in my heart. But I think Part 4, what we're going to talk about here in a second, I think is it's definitely a good one as well. So yeah, what we'll do then, we'll take a break here, and then we'll come back and we'll talk some Bloodfist 4.
All right, sounds good, Matt.
My newest novel, Don's House in the Mountains, is available now. It follows Don Veazey, who after 20 years has finally made it as a writer, going from an AP English teacher to richer and more famous than he ever could have imagined. In the process, his wife Lois, feeling alienated and resentful of her husband's success, has filed for divorce, forcing Don to move to a house in the White Mountains of New Hampshire. With time alone to reflect, he's able to see how his new wealth and fame has affected his life in ways he never expected. Maybe the biggest of these is his new house, which is bigger and nicer than anything he's ever had in his entire life, but the longer he lives there, the more he gets the sense that it might have magical powers. But that can't be right. A house can't have magical powers, can it? Pick up Don's House in the Mountains today. You can find it at Amazon in paperback and in Kindle.
We are back. Yes, I'm sorry. I was John and I were talking about snacks, and I was like going to be like, "Hey, you ready to record it?" We just started talking about snacks, and yes, you missed a good bit that we were doing on healthy snacks and not healthy snacks, and so
a very short, brief version of the bit is that the world is terrible. Like, it's terrible. It's a hideous, death-filled dumpster fire filled with hairy diapers, diapers filled with hair, covered by rich, guilty, fucking greedy assholes. That's the world that we live in. And then along in that world comes people who go, and you're not allowed, you shouldn't eat cake either. What are you talking about? Right. Have you looked out of the window today at this shower of bastards? Why on earth would I not be allowed to eat all of the cake? Well, it causes you to gain weight and maybe you become diabetic and blah, blah. Right, but have you looked at the world? Have you looked at the burning cacophony of hellish, poisonous nightmares that is existence in 2023? Have some fucking cake. If it kills you a few days early, so be it.
And the thing is that cake is one of those things that, like,
or it's like, if you're a cookie person, like bag of chips, whatever floats your diabetic boat.
That's one of the things I think that the grocery store has always figured out well, is that they know that this world is shit, and they know that they've completely killed you. They know, like, that everything is inflated, everything's really expensive, so that they know the best way to get you is when you're going through the checkout line.
Yeah.
Here's all the candy. Here's all the cakes, the cookies, the Slim Jims. All that stuff is right there waiting for you. If you want the soda,
Olympic-sized Twix.
Right.
Here's the Twix. That if you lined out all of the Twixes in this particular Twix, it would be 100 meters dash.
Right. Exactly.
That fucking enormous.
But it's only like.
Yeah. Anyway.
I was gonna say, but it's only like $2 for that Twix. So you're looking at what you've spent on everything else, right? Your $100 worth of groceries, and you're like,
pre-knitted, pre-dried, pre-crushed, exactly. Anti this, anti that, no antibiotics in it. It's gluten-free, it's kosher, it's been slaughtered correctly. We've removed anything that resembles human food. And we've put a bunch of labels on it, like any of them mean anything. By the way, you could spray chemicals on a shit all day. If it grows in the ground and is a carbon-based life form, then it's organic.
Right.
Everything is organic. I know you want the word organic to mean because we haven't put chemicals on it, but that's because you don't understand the word organic. The word organic simply indicates that something is an organism, and everything that grows is an organism, whether a wolf pisses on it or a man sprays pesticides on it. Doesn't matter. It's still an organism. It's still organic. It's this idea, well, it's only organic. No, it's not. It's a marketing point. It's bullshit.
Well, the other thing too.
Carrots that are this fucking big for 3 times the price of the fucking enormous fucking horsecock shaped carrots that you really want. Because you're like, I only have to buy 4 of these fuckers and it'll feed my family for a month. Oh, how much are they? 50 cents. How much are the organic ones? $85 and a pint of your blood. Because we have to test it for some reason.
Because we put organic, because it's like the co-op near us, right? There's frozen vegetables from this place in New Jersey. It's like a farm co-op or something like that. The best spinach, best green beans, best peas, best corn ever, $2.99 a bag, right? It's organic because it's like, whatever organic is, they're making this on like this the smallest scale, whatever. Like they don't even keep it in stock.
That's them a whole strain of lettuce every week.
Right. it's like this is better. Like if I go to the grocery store, they're gonna label something organic and charge me $5 for the same thing. Yeah, it's like organic doesn't always have to be more expensive, but it's like they just know there's so many bougie assholes out there that'll pay for it.
Have a laugh,
Right?
have a slice of cake, and shut the fuck up, please. Unless you're talking about Bloodfist IV,
Right?
done trying.
Yes. Which
so, shall I do the synopsis for this one, or would you like to?
It's up to you. If you either way, it's a fantastic. So I'll go quick with it. It's just we've now got our hero is now named oh, I kind of lost Bloodfist IV here. Sorry, let me pull it up here. Danny. So we've got Danny here, who's a repo expert. Danny Holt.
Danny. He was Jake in the first one, right?
He was Jake, Jimmy. Now he's Danny. He's he repos cars, and he ends up repoing a car that Gary Daniels is affixing a different license plate to. So he's taking the wrong car. Turns out this car has some contraband in it in a candy box. Of course, he's going to get himself something to eat when the guys,
or detonators or something, or
nuclear detonator. Yeah. When Gary Daniels and his guys show up at the repo yard, they massacre the entire crew of them. So 7 people are just murdered there. Yeah. And Don discovers like he's got to get out of there quickly. So he first he encounters some police officers. He thinks they're what the dirty cops, so he kind of escapes. And now it's Don the Dragon Wilson on the run. He doesn't know who he can trust.
Every 8 minutes, again, we'll find a new group of goons to pounce on him. Right. And it doesn't matter. Well, the police are showing up. Oh, but they're not police because they're pouncing on him. Exactly. Oh, wait a minute. The nanny has, been replaced by another nanny. The nanny's evil. It's like every 10 minutes, it's like, wait, oh shit. We've been 8 minutes talking about, like, I don't know about you, Matt, but I could have totally gone for a Taxi style situation comedy set in the world of that repo house.
Yes, yeah.
How much fun were those
repo guys? Yeah. They were great repo guys, and they get massacred. Like, it's a very PM kind of thing to happen in a Conquer New Horizons, like because PM Entertainment had no problem with 10 to 15 people being massacred in a go.
Killed. Also, there's a lot of close-ups of it shooting water barrels, like water fountain barrels, and I was like, first of all, how many water fountains do they have in this place? This is ridiculous. And secondly, I was like, what a waste. I mean, I get it. They have to prove that they're using real bullets or whatever, but like, I don't care. Just kill a few humans and get on with it.
Right, exactly. And I mean, this is really kind of the first, because I think pretty much every one of these movies after between 4 through 8 are just essentially Don the Dragon Wilson against the world. Like, he finds a woman. In this case, it's Amanda Weiss is playing the woman that he can trust. That's usually like there's one woman that he can trust who will help him. Gillian McWhirter plays that woman most of the time, but in this case, it's Amanda Weiss. We've got the cop that we think might be on the level, which is played by Liz Torres, who had a small, like, kind of reoccurring role on All in the Family. I think it's because the Gloria had moved out and they wanted to try to bring in a new Gloria, so they brought in.
And they've probably seen this movie and were like, "Let's get some of that Liz, whatever her name is, in our show." But she gets my favorite line about the pizza. You know what I mean? Do you just bring that in? Still warm? Good. And you think she's like talking about a case or whatever, and then it's a pizza.
Yeah, she's talking about the pizza. I mean, we also get James Tolkien, which again, this is the situation where you want
he's
a less
Tolkien.
Right, he's the Tolkien. It's like when either you can't afford Donald, or you can't get Donald Pleasance, or maybe you want an American Donald Pleasance. Maybe if they don't, I don't think Donald Pleasance ever had to work with an American accent before. I don't.
I mean, his Dr. Loomis does have Dr. Loomis isn't Donald Pleasance's complete original voice.
Okay.
He's doing a slight American accent in that role, I think.
Okay.
And a couple of films he puts on a little bit of an accent.
So I guess in this case they maybe they just couldn't get Pleasance. They had to settle for for James Tolkien, and so
what if James Tolkien played J.R. Tolkien in a movie But he was one of like 20 actors playing J.R. Tolkien. And so he was the Tolkien. And he was doing a lot of talking. So he was the talking.
Well, because what was that movie? Remember they did that movie where it was like everybody was playing Bob Dylan. It was like Kate Blanchett was playing Bob Dylan. It was like, just like it was like very
Everyone
indulgent.
remembers Kate Blanchett. Name 3 other people who played Bob Dylan.
Yeah.
Nobody can name them.
No, I can't
Eddie
think
Redmayne was probably one of them, but that's only
Yeah.
because I think his name is hilarious.
Right. Yeah, but it's like this idea that having a bunch of people playing Tolkien and one of them being James Tolkien, who
Is the
looks like
Tolkien.
Yeah.
He's the Tolkien playing Tolkien. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I was obviously.
But Liz Torres was my favorite blustery police captain.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like she just kind of comes in and plays that part. I mean, we also get Jean LaBelle, who was known for making Steven Seagal shit his pants. I think that's what he's best known for.
Best known for choking out Steven Seagal, even though Steven Seagal has flatly refuted it.
Right.
I don't believe him because he lies about everything.
Well,
mostly his ethnicity. Plus, Jean LaBelle has incredible mad red hair and should be celebrated every day. We should wake up and rub the red hair of Jean LaBelle.
Right. I think he passed away recently. Yeah, last year he passed away because when he passed away, everybody played that interview that he did. I think he did it with somebody like a Joe Rogan or somebody like that. But it was like one of those deals where it was like, tell me about the time you made Steven Seagal shit his pants. And I guess like Seagal was like telling everybody like, you can't get me in a chokehold. Like anybody who gets me in a chokehold, I can get out of it. Well, apparently his getting out of it was punching the person in the balls. And so Jean LaBelle just handled being punched in the balls and just kept.
Jean LaBelle doesn't have. Well, people don't know about Jean LaBelle is he had his balls replaced with ball bearings. So you can go to town on Jean LaBelle's balls. I mean, all day long, really, Matt. They'll take quite a hefty thwacking.
Right.
So Seagal's cowardly way to get out of a headlock by grabbing, cowardly and frankly homoerotic, Matt. Not that I have no problem with homoeroticism.
Right.
The more the better. I bought the Harry Hamlin movie Deception or whatever the fuck it's called. It's not Deception. But he definitely has a shirt open on the front cover, and it's like with Robert Davi, and you're like, I don't want to see Robert Davi do anything with sexy times. But maybe Harry Hamlin with his ridiculous fake. I mean, Harry Hamlin looks like he's carved out of plastic, like a G.I. Joe melted into a Ken doll, melted into a tub of ice cream. Like Harry Hamlin looks obscene. Like it's upsetting. And everyone's like, oh, he's so attractive. Is he though? Or does he look like someone took a boglin and like squeezed its face together? Anyway.
He was great in Mad Men because he just played someone who's just so ridiculous. But of course, this is Mad Men where he's like in his like 60s, so he's got like thin glasses and Well,
once Hamlin hit the Silver Fox era, that's where he started to get the really serious roles in shows like Mad Men, where he really got to show his range.
Right. Exactly.
How is this any different from the regular Harry Hamlin? Well, I've got slightly gray hair, and therefore people take me seriously.
Right.
They do. They take you, Harry Hamlin, seriously. I see.
Yeah,
what about Herman Poppy's photo? He played Agent Hardy in this. What about his photo on IMDb with the fucking Poirot mustache? Also, had I completely blocked out that Gary Daniels was in this movie?
Right.
I completely blocked that out, and then he showed up with his White Tiger. Is it White Tiger, the Jackie Chan movie he did with the long hair?
No, City Hunter. City Hunter.
City Hunter.
Yes.
Why am I saying White Tiger? What the fuck is that?
That's a movie he did, isn't it? White Tiger, one of his. I think it's also.
I mean, I hope so. Otherwise, I think I've had a stroke.
Because I think that White Tiger is his, and I think Lone Tiger is the Robert Zadar one. But
okay.
Of course, IMDb doesn't want to load for me right now. I think I've opened up too many I have so many tabs.
Too many. He's gone down a rabbit hole of everyone who's ever worked with James Tolkien. And he's like, I must watch all of the movies.
I've got all the Tolkien films here.
Yeah.
There was a movie he did that had tiger in the name, but I think it is White Tiger.
Right?
I think you're right about that. I think that's the one.
Anyway, City Hunter.
Yes.
He has the long hair for City Hunter, right? Isn't that why he has the long what's his name from The Who? Roger.
It is White Tiger. He plays a character named Mike Ryan. It's actually in between his Rage and Riot films. He does White Tiger.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's the Roger Daltrey?
Yeah.
His like long curly blonde Roger Daltrey hair.
Yeah, Roger Daltrey from the Highlander episodes when he played an immortal and had his Daltrey hair in full effect.
Yes.
Well, yeah.
I love that Daltrey just dabbled in acting and people just let him. Like, like people just went, well, I guess Roger Daltrey is in this movie as a vampire. Wait, what's happening? It's like, I'm Roger Daltrey. Yeah!
Yeah, I remember one of the Highlander episodes because he was supposed to be like an old, he's like somebody from way back, long period back in Britain. And there was an episode where him and Duncan MacLeod were playing golf, but it was like the earliest days of golf. So they're just like sort of hitting a ball with like leaves all over the place and stuff like that. Yeah. And it's like, this ridiculous thing between the two of them. But like they just, it was.
Well, that's what I think about golf anyway. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, right.
Golf is just silly.
Yes.
Anyway, this is I love this part 4. It's I genuinely really enjoyed it. I liked it mainly because it ends with 2 large men shooting blanks all over Don the Dragon Wilson's back, which sounds like that's like if I just said there's a couple of guys shooting blanks all over Don Wilson's back, you'd think I was watching some pornography. But no, I meant actual blanks from a gun.
Yeah, and one of those guys is Dale Jacoby playing Henchman too, but he's someone did PM flicks. He was
like wait, you could in Bloodfist III, Forced to Fight, you gave every single extra a silly team name. This one's Binky, this one's Hat Stand, this one's Fat Face Fuck Face, this one's Ukulele Tits, this one's Barreled, this one's Jeffed, this one's Binty and this one's Ellen Bargain's Foreskin. And they're like, wait, but when we get to Bloodfist IV, I'm just Henchman 2. That's just lazy writing.
If you look at one of the even better ones is one of the FBI agents is beating up Wilson in the they have the FBI coats on, stuff like that. He's listed as Arturo Perez. He's FBI agent 7, but it's actually Art Camacho. For whatever reason, he couldn't be Art Camacho on the credits for that. He could be Art Camacho as the stunt coordinator, as the fight coordinator, but not I don't know why he was Arturo Perez. I don't know why they decided to make him that, but yeah, you're right. Like instead of all these goofy names, it's like a series of FBI agent 1, 2, 3, 4, henchman 1, 2, killer 1, 2.
Well, I think because the writer of part 4 didn't quite have the linguistic prowess of the writer of part 3. Part 3 had something to say. Right. Part 4 is like, how long between fight scenes does there have to be? Because we can't really bear anyone having any actual dialogue or the plot making any fucking sense whatsoever. Right. What we just need to do is to go from one place to another and have a ridiculous fight scene. One of which I think the fight in the flat with the woman.
Oh, it's Katia Sassoon.
Yes.
Yeah.
With the fight with her, I was getting Kill Bill vibes. I feel like the scene with Vivica Fox and Uma Thurman in Kill Bill, where they're kind of trashing the kitchen and they're both kind of bleeding and stuff. I got those kind of vibes, Matt. And as we know, Tarantino was a fan of straight to video action stuff. So
yeah. No, that's a good point. And I think Katya Sassoon is one of those things where if you're Don the Dragon Wilson and you come home and you see that your babysitter is Kat Sassoon, you know something's amiss,
Right.
and he should have figured it out sooner. But
He should
eventually he
have
does
figured
figure
it out Sassoon.
Sassoon, exactly. Now, one thing I wanted to mention too about the names, because I just happened
Yeah.
to catch this. Jim Wise played Pizza Cop. So that scene you talked about with the cop bringing in the pizza and everyone being
Yes.
like, "Is this still?" Yeah, he actually got a credit as Pizza Cop, I guess, because maybe he has a line because he says yes.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, he gets a better
Oh, that's
credit
nice.
there.
Okay, that's in
Yeah,
the fourth one, right?
yeah, exactly. This fourth one here, that Pizza Cop. But
Yeah,
yeah,
because the what do we have? We have it's all fine. They at least give names to the repo guys.
right,
Like
yes,
at least they all have names, and most of the henchmen have, there's Sal and Scarface and a couple of others, but then you just have like henchman 1, and I don't really get that, and then henchman 2, and they're at completely different points on the IMDb cast list, so I'm confused by that as well.
right.
And but yeah, Pizza Cop is fantastic. If I wanted to be credited as anything in this movie, it would be Pizza Cop.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I mean, speaking about the fights, because the Kat Sassoon fight is a really great one, and obviously he has
It is a
two
good one.
really good ones with Gary Daniels. And for me, when I rank kind of DTV stars, I've got
Yeah.
Dolph as kind of my number one. Fred Williamson is number two. It's possible that maybe those two will flip just because I get into more Fred Williamson stuff or kind of more of what he's done. It might be,
Right.
that maybe he's the number one. But my tied for number three is Wilson and Rothrock. And then I've got Daniels as my number five because I kind of just, those two being tied for three,
Well, of course. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You obey the rule. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But
Right.
Wilson fighting Daniels, it's really the only time that I can think of where there's a fight between, other than, now Rothrock and Wilson are doing movies together, kind of like more low budget stuff, but kind of in their prime in the 90s. This is really the only time you get, like, for me, my top five, them, two of the top
Right.
five fighting together.
No, definitely. And I think that there should have been, because there'd been sort of men on mission movies for a while, whether it's the Dirty Dozen or the Magnificent Seven or, whatever it is. And so I think that there should have been more, like, with them in their prime, all of them all together. You know what I mean? Because it would have been lovely to have had, Prime Daniels and Prime Rothrock and Prime Speakman and Prime Wilson all in, like, and it's odd actually, because considering PM Entertainment, they obviously were like, these are our Wilson movies, these are our Daniels movies, this is our Rothrock movie, this is our two Speakman films, this is our 88 C. Thomas Howell films.
Right.
The hell, they even let C. Thomas Howell fucking direct one of them.
Right.
These are our cool little weird Wings Hauser movies that only certain people will know about or love. Here are much later Michael Madsen era movies,
Jeff
of which
Fahey.
only the only executive target is
Right.
worth a damn. But no, I'm surprised they didn't look at it and go, you know what, let's do the team up movie. You know what I mean? Because now, if PMNT was being made now, it'd be all about team up movies.
Yeah.
And we've almost, I think, we had Expendables and then the Avengers, and you wouldn't have got, Matt, the Avengers without the Expendables. I just want you to note that. Even though the Avengers was obviously in comic books years ago, I'm just telling you, the Expendables paved the way. I'm just saying it. I think we know it, you know it, I know it.
Because what they said, what the people that made the Marvel movies said, was that apparently when they started to break off and make, when they started to get the rights back for characters, from being out there, they looked at it and they were like, oh, we actually have enough to make an Avenger. Like, we have enough people that we could make an Avengers.
Yeah.
But I think you're right that, like, for it to work the way that the Avengers worked, they had to do an Expendable style kind of thing where you've got all the stars together. It's one thing to have all the characters, but to have them played by, have Robert Downey Jr. with, Chris Evans, with Scarlett Johansson, like
Yeah.
all of those stars together in one movie like that. Yeah, the Expendables kind of lets you know that, like, okay, they're not all going to fight for screen time. They're going to be able to manage it.
That's what, or like the original Inglourious Bastards or Dirty Dozen, all those movies. I want my prime Wilson. I suppose the closest we get is probably Redemption.
Yes.
That was still a fairly early one.
Yeah.
With Wilson and Rothrock. I'm trying to think if there's any other like cool team ups and stuff. I suppose you get Rothrock and in Martial Law 2, Wincott.
That's a really good one. That's a good point. Yeah.
That's a good one. So you get Wincott and that, and you get what's the other one? There's another one where she obviously did a bunch with Richard Norton. She did a bunch with what's his name? Jalal something. What's his
Jalal
name?
Merhi. Yeah.
Jalal Merhi. Yeah, he does a bunch of stuff with her. But no, I could have done with some prime, because yes, they've done a lot now. They've done I think about 4 or 5 movies together now, but and most of them is just re-edited versions of the same thing, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, when they were in their prime in the 90s, and I think part of the reason, maybe kind of what you've talked about with Rothrock, one of the biggest travesties with her was that she didn't do more PM stuff. And that's probably a reason why we didn't get, I mean, we could have had a really great buddy cop movie with the two of them, that would have just been absolutely killer, where, and get someone like a Spiro Rosados and an Art Camacho involved with it, and just let the two of them loose on, James Liu and whoever other stunt guys you can get together, and just
Al Leong, just get Al Leong right in there.
Right, exactly. I mean, that was the movie that PM should have made that they never made. And I think maybe that might have been Stallone's fault, because wasn't he supposed to make a movie with Rothrock that he never made? And I think she kind of put stuff on hold that she shouldn't have, because she was, yeah. And I think maybe that's where that one of the, I mean, I don't know.
And it's the one thing I'll never forgive Stallone for.
Yeah, because
he's had 3 opportunities, 4 opportunities now to put her in an Expendables movie, and he hasn't, and that's criminal. Criminal. Now, of course, Rothrock and Gary Daniels did have the incredible mashup of, My Christmas' Dog's House, or whatever it is. What's the name of that movie? My favorite Christmas is Santa's dog. He's got a dog in everyone's family, Santa.
I remember when I posted that I think Mitch from Video Vacuum had come on to do that one with me, and I remember when I posted it, you were like, "Thank God I'm not doing that movie."
There's no way, Matt. There's no way on earth you get me to watch Santa's fucking Summer House. Isn't it Christopher Mitchell in it? Who's in it?
So it's got Daniels, it's got Rothrock, it's got Daniel Bernhard, it's got Kathy Long, and then Chris Mitchum plays Santa.
Chris Mitchum, that's
he's Santa. And there's this long croquet scene where I guess David Dakota, who's the director, he just needed to pad the film out, and he pads it out with this long croquet scene. And the two, Mitch and I were talking about it afterward, because we were talking like MST3K, where they have like rock climbing. It's like this big joke, because this movie that Cesar Romero just saying they were rock climbing forever, and it was like the same idea. It was like, how long are you going to show this croquet match between all of these people? And really all it is just like hitting the ball and then like jumping up and down, hitting the ball, jumping up and down. And that for like on an endless loop for like 20 minutes. It was absurd.
That's the Dakota way, though. That's very much the Dakota way.
It was very Dakota. He's just like, I've got a mansion here in Malibu. We've got 7 days. Let's make this movie.
Let's do it. And it's a fun movie, this one. One I haven't seen this one in a long time, and it surprised me, and I really, really did like it. I thought it was some of the action was really, really good, and just well worth it.
Yeah, I think that's the same thing for me. I think I was surprised in watching it again how much I really liked it. I think for people out there, one of the problems with this one is it's not on any of the streamers. It's available on YouTube, but it's not on the streamers. I don't know why that is, why all the Bloodfists except for 4 and 5 are on Tubi. But for whatever reason, this one isn't. And it's a shame, because I think this one is maybe one of the strongest, not maybe just one of the strongest efforts, but maybe one of the strongest of like this era of action movies. It's really, really good movie.
Yeah, and I feel like off the back of this one, they could have Fast and Furious this in the
Yes.
sense that 5 could have been the best one, then 6
Yeah.
and 7 they could have kept topping each other until you've got
Yeah.
Bloodfist in space.
Right. Exactly.
And actually, isn't there like a Bloodfist 2050 or
There
something?
is. I haven't seen it before. It was like a TV movie. It's funny they bring back Joe Marie Avion.
Yeah,
And yeah, but and I kind of like Fast and Furious too. Is like in the first two movies they bring back Joe Marie Avion. He plays a completely different character, and
right,
nobody cares. And it's like
right.
with the blood. It's like the Fast and Furious movies. They have to come up with 8 million reasons like why we're Jason Statham's trying to kill us in one movie. Suddenly now
Right.
he's working with us now, and he's a great friend. It's like just
Right.
all water under the bridge that you tried to kill us for an entire movie. That
Right. And that,
yeah.
that everyone believed that he had killed Han.
Right,
Everyone
exactly.
would, like flat out believed that he had killed Han until apparently Han isn't dead, by the way, everybody, because we are just living in Vin Diesel's soap opera addled Dungeons and Dragons madness.
Right. Yes.
Because what's mad about Vin Diesel is what's mad about Steven Seagal
Right.
is that they believe their own gobbledygook.
Right.
So
right.
Vin Diesel goes, well, if a car is attached to a long vine, like jungle vine, and pings all the way out, the jungle vine will act like elastic and ping the car back on top of the mountain. And I'm like, okay, so there's a number of issues there, not least of which the laws of physics and gravity and God knows what else. But what are you talking about? The vine will elastically ping a fully grown, muscle car onto a fucking mountain. What are you talking about? Vin Diesel, it's perfectly reasonable. You don't understand this anymore. And by the way, in the next 2 movies, we're going to have cars drown a nuclear submarine and a car drive in space. In space. We are going to put Ludacris. Hang on, let me just say the sentence again. We're going to put Ludacris and Tyrese Gibson in a 90s car with a fucking like Blues Brothers style bell horn fucking accelerator rocket thing on the back of it, right? We're going to shoot them into space. Ludacris is going to be in space in a car in a movie. And they're going to go, no, but it's perfectly all right because, that we used jet fuel and we did the thing and we put wings on the car. And I'm like, no, but that's not how it works. No, but that is how it works. Like we've watched rockets take off from Cape Canaveral or wherever. We've gone, oh, look, the rocket's shaped a bit like this with a bit like that on it. And they've clearly put a lot of fuel in the tank. Fuck it. That's physics right there. And I'm like, it's baffling to me, but everyone's just like, fine. Ludacris, Tyrese Gibson in a car in space. Madness. Vin Diesel's gone from stealing DVD players to being a pivotal cog in the government espionage machine. When no one else, Matt, none of the highest trained spies or Marines or fucking anything in the land, when a job cannot be done by those people, they go to street racing DVD criminals and go, these are the only people for the job. Fuck the years of training that we have in the military, the espionage services, the investigative services, whatever. No, fuck all of that, the decades of that. These guys who can just drive a car really well, I think they're the guys to jump out of a plane, Matt. Jump out of a plane in cars and have Kurt Russell as a government agent go, these guys are good. No, wait, what are you doing? You're throwing muscle cars out of a plane. These guys are geniuses. Because if we don't believe that these guys are geniuses, then they're crazy and we're crazy and then we lose our job. So these people are geniuses, cars out of a plane. Brilliant. That's basically it, Matt.
Because if you think about it, right, the first Fast and the Furious movie was a ripoff of Point Break.
Right.
So, and Vin Diesel was Bodhi, right?
Yeah.
He was essentially Bodhi. So essentially you're talking about Bodhi from
from Point Break, now driving cars through like imagining taking Point Break with Keanu Reeves and Patrick Swayze and turning it into
Point Break is based on something, isn't it?
It might be. I think it might have been based off a old movie. I think where a guy infiltrates a biker gang. I think.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. I think
that's yes. I think it's a well-worn trope anyway.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. It's the one thing I always think is with Part 4, right? Fast and where they bring Vin Diesel back. If that movie failed, Vin Diesel was straight to video. He was he was going to go completely direct to video. That was it. And Paul Walker comes into Part 4 with his nicely tailored suits and his foot chases, and he just steals the movie. And they're like, hey, you know what? We really like this Paul Walker foot chase thing. And Vin Diesel, you're all right, too. Let's make another one of these movies. They make the 5th one with The Rock, and suddenly it's like making like almost $1 billion. And they're like, hey, we've suddenly got our Marvel here. Universal, they've got their Marvel. It's like the biggest, craziest thing that's ever happened with movies, I think. Like,
I love it, by the way. I don't want the last one, Fast X, and whatever.
Part 2.
Part 2, Part 3, whatever. I think they're making now a trilogy. I don't want it to ever end, Matt. No, I genuinely really don't. I don't care if they spin it off. I don't care, whatever.
Right.
I want this soap opera. Like, I've never been invested in a soap opera, Matt. I've never Days of Our Lives or Neighbors or any of them. I'm not. Don't care about any of them. I'm not a soap opera guy, Matt. But give me insane plotting, ridiculous cameos, fantastic explosions, and foot chases, and I'm like a babe in arms. I'm like, give me more of this sweet teats, because Vin Diesel, once every 2 to 3 years, rips his tank top open, and we all supple from his tender teat of madness, and it fills us up, Matt, because again, in a world, right, that is just undeniably rotten from the core to the mantle to the earth, just completely rotten, filled a hive of scum and villainy like never dreamt of before on our planet or any other planet. Just the worst possible place you could possibly live. The world is at any given time. If you aren't allowed to enjoy a Fast and Furious movie in which Vin Diesel tries to stop a gigantic explosive marble from wrecking the entirety of Rome or wherever they are, if I'm not allowed to watch that and bask in the glow of that, then I don't want to be on this planet anymore. Give me more fucking cake, Matt, and let's watch some Fast and Furious movies, or let's watch some Bloodfist movies, or let's get to the point where, everyone decides that what needs to happen is the Fast and Furious franchise and the Bloodfist franchise need to intersect.
Yeah.
And we get George Lucas that shit. We bring back a young Don Wilson. He becomes a villain in Fast 12, but then by Fast 15 he's a hero. And he's on the good guy team, and him and Vin Diesel are infiltrating Russian prisons and, on Mars, wearing nothing but a tank top and a pair of aviator shades.
Yes, I think this is what we need. We need the crossing over those worlds. We need Jake Ryan, because who else could survive the Fast and Furious world better than the Bloodfist,
the Bloodfist character? I really do wish they'd kept his name. Yeah. I really do wish they'd just gone, no, this is one guy's journey.
He's just going through
this. It never ends for him.
It's like he goes to Ireland. And he's like, I can't even fucking go to Ireland before I'm getting. It's like Murder, She Wrote, where Jessica Fletcher goes to Ireland and there's a murder there. It's like,
oh yeah, wherever she goes, people are fucking dropping dead, and no local sheriff. Just because she'll show up and go, oh, Jessica Fletcher, she baked us a ham or something. Oh, she can't possibly be evil. Meanwhile, Jessica Fletcher has murdered more cousins and aunts and random gardeners than any other fucking person on the planet. She is the the killer of the middle class. The true death to the middle class was Jessica Fletcher. And
but it's like Don the Dragon Wilson the same way. It's like he can't go anywhere without a criminal conspiracy swarming
like
around
Chuck
him. That he has
can't even bat his eyelids at a woman without her being violently attacked in a bathroom. By the fifth death wish, you're like, someone should have. It's like the werewolf thing. You know how in werewolf movies where people are very like self-aware, they're like, oh, I'm a self-aware werewolf, so every time I'm about to turn into a werewolf, I responsibly chain myself up in the basement because nothing could possibly ever go wrong. It's like that. By the time you get to Death Wish 5, Matt, someone should have chained Bronson up in a basement, never to look at a woman's glance again. Because he could even see a woman in a magazine, Matt, and that woman that was in a magazine, even if she was several towns away, would get murdered or killed or raped or stabbed or shot or shit on or something. Something would have happened that would have been absolutely devastating, all because Bronson flashed his squinty peepers at her. And because that's the kind of power that he has in the Death Wish franchise.
Yeah, well, when you get to those later death wishes, and I think the funny thing about those later death wishes is at the time we're like, oh, Bronson, he's so much older, like he's playing, these parts. Now it's like all of them are older than Bronson was in Death Wish 5, and they're all still making movies.
Dude, I'm going to tell you, this was both the most amazing and the most depressing thing ever to happen to me while watching a movie. So last week, my friend Jim came for the weekend, and we did some filming and some other stuff. But one of the movies we watched while he was here is a George C. Scott movie called The Last Run. And it's sort of a little bit like the opening scenes in The Transporter, in the sense that George C. Scott is, or was many years ago, a driver for hire for like criminals, for like getaway driver for hire. Hasn't done it in 8 or 9 years, and comes out of retirement for one last run, hence the name of the movie, which of course stuff along the way goes wrong and blah 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 blah. Now there's everyone else in the movie is like younger than George C. Scott, and everyone in the movie is all like, come on uncle, or come on granddad, or like, God, this guy is so old. They keep talking about him and then at the end of the movie, much like Get Carter, not to spoil it, but whatever, at the end of the movie, he's dead on a beach, right? Dead on a beach. Because essentially what the movie is saying is, you're old over the hill, you poked your head out of the sand for one more last drive, right? And everyone is okay because of how old you are, with you dying on a beach at the end of the movie. Do you know how old he was making that movie, Matt?
In his 40s.
He was 43 years old. By the time the movie came out, he was 44 years old.
Yeah.
And in the 1970s, Matt, they believed that at 44, you were okay to die on a beach. At that point, you had given all that you were ever going to give, and you should just die on a beach. That's the message of that movie, Matt.
Right.
Well, I'm 44 in February.
Yeah.
I don't want to die on a beach yet, Matt.
No, I'm 44 as it is right now. I'm 44 now. I think the thing is that back then if you were 44 in the 70s, that means you'd been smoking for at least 30 of those years at this point, right? Maybe 35 of those years. So your face was all leathery and you looked a lot older anyway. Right. So you looked like you were like in your 50s and you'd really seen some shit. And it was like, if your lungs could last past 45, you were doing okay.
I was watching it, the movie, and I was looking at George C. Scott, and everyone, when I say George C. Scott, you can just picture George C. Scott, right? Because whether Buck Turgidson in Doctor Strangelove or whether it's the detective in Exorcist 3, it's the same George C. Scott, and my goodness, do we love him? He's one of the greatest. I love George C. Scott. He's like my new American obsession. He's like my American Donald Pleasance. George C. Scott has become my new obsession. I bought a bunch of George C. Scott movies lately. But in The Last Run, I was watching it with my friend Jim, and we turned the movie off, and I go, God, he was 44 when that movie came out. And I'm like, I don't look like George C. Scott, do I? Like, I'm not old like George C. Scott. And my friend Jim just looked at me and went, yes, you are. Like, if we put you on film in the 70s, in like a leather jacket and a turtleneck in an old beat up BMW, and we filmed you in the 70s, and then we showed that to you now, you would look exactly like him. And he's like, because you're looking at it thinking I think in my head, yeah, apart from the little bit of gray in my beard, I think in my head I look 30.
Right.
But 30-year-olds look at me and go, "Get out of the way, granddad, you old fat fuck. Get out of the way. Stop eating cake. We're here to outrageously protest something." Well, who are you for? Well, we're for Palestine. No, well, we're for Israel. Well, if we're for Palestine, we're for Israel. Oh my God. Guess
funny.
what? Everyone commenting on that horrendous human rights hideousness over there, and I'm not picking any sides, but I'm just saying it's violent and grotesque on both sides. But I'm saying this: anyone commenting online about that, shut up. You don't know. You don't know unless you've been there, and unless you're Jewish or Palestinian. You don't know. You don't know. You don't know. So I'm not commenting on it. I'm just saying you don't know. And all memes, videos, Facebook updates, fucking Instagram stories or whatever. Stop it yesterday, because it's you're embarrassing yourself and you're embarrassing everybody else.
Yeah. No, sorry, I totally agree with but the age one, on the age one, I recently, I don't know, it was a couple of years ago. When I go to the liquor store, I don't get carded. And I was at the grocery store buying wine, and these two young ladies were in front of me. One of them wasn't 21. The other one, her ID was expired. And they were asking like if I would buy the beer for them. And I was like, well, I'm not going to buy the beer for you because it's a grocery store. There's cameras. It's like, it's absurd. So I say to them, but if you go to the liquor store, you won't get carded. You'll be perfectly fine. And then I go and buy my wine, and I think about it. I'm like, no. I am perfectly fine to not get carded because I look old. I don't look 21. These are two people that are, they're going to get carded. Like they're, it's like.
Why don't you go, the supermarket won't send you beer? Wait, the supermarket that's run by feral children and 55-year-old men who are divorcee, fucking 3 payments of alimony, fucking balding, I hate the world people. Those are the two people that work at supermarkets. The barely of age, feral children. And then at the other end of the spectrum, you've got the married 3 times, divorced 3 times, children hate him, over the hill guy who puts barely any energy into arranging the loaves of bread or the cantaloupe melons. You know what I mean? He's just given up. Those are the two people who work in supermarkets. So you said, this supermarket, which barely cares whether you fucking taking heroin in the cereal aisle, let alone fucking serving an underage alcohol. You told these people who'd already been turned down at the easiest place to get alcohol to go to literally the hardest place.
Well, no, because the grocery store has like this policy that like they card everybody. Everyone's going to show their ID at the grocery store. The liquor store, I don't know. I go in there, they never carded me, and in my head I'm thinking like, if they're not carding me, they're going to card you either. And it's like, no, they see gray in my beard. And of course, unless you're 21 and you've like really, really lived a tough life, chances are you don't have gray in your beard at 21. Yeah. And so they just, but in my head, I see myself again, like you said, it's like someone who should still be getting carded all the time. And and then the liquor store is just being very lax about it, as opposed to the liquor store is saying like, dude, you're the same age as me. I'm an older guy behind the counter.
I have both. My whole life, I've simultaneously felt 16 and 60.
Yeah.
That's how I feel. I've always felt somewhere between 16 and 60. In other words, my brain is youthful and carefree. I like to think youthful and carefree, but my body feels. But my favorite thing to do is to shuffle around in slippers and a cardigan with a hot cup of tea and watch cozy movies. That's my favorite thing to do.
Yeah, it's one of those things like one of the things about Philadelphia is I keep hearing about the crime here in Philadelphia. Well, I never go out at night anymore, so it doesn't really bother me because I'm not going to be worried about it. But the other thing though, I think too,
when I go out at night, it's so noisy.
Right, exactly. But I think the forgetting that I'm starting to understand that I'm older now, and it's like maybe like 5 or 6 years ago. I can't remember what it was. I took a bus up to Boston from here
Yeah.
and realized that I am not at an age where I should be taking buses for long distances like that. Like my back can't handle it, that my
Yeah.
body can't,
We
like,
all go, oh, it doesn't matter, I'll sleep on the bus.
right.
Come to you on the bus being like, everything hurts.
Yeah.
You can't
No,
turn.
I'm just sitting there watching us go through Sea Caucus in Connecticut and the Mass Pike, staring out the window going, I'm not sleeping. It's 3 a.m. and I'm not sleeping. Yeah.
Never sleep. Yeah.
No.
It's funny. It's like there was a time where I would take, and in the last 10 years, where I would take a 8-hour bus ride from New York to Pittsburgh overnight, stopping literally at the only 2 places in the middle of Pennsylvania, which is the university and there's a gas station. There's like one gas station about 5 hours from here and about 3.5 hours from Pittsburgh. Yeah. There's one gas station right past the university. So you literally stop at those 2 places. That's it. And I used to be able to, leave the evening before, get on the bus, go to Pittsburgh, do a full weekend of drinking and eating and partying and, living it up or whatever, get back on a bus Sunday night, come back into the city Monday morning and do a full day's work. I used to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And now when this time I drove to Pittsburgh in my own car that I own. I then went to an Airbnb and slept in a really comfortable king size bed. Right. Which I was in, by the way, by about 11 o'clock at night. Right. So, and that's literally in the last 8 years, Matt. Yeah. So in the last 8 years, I've gone from being like, oh, fuck it. Yeah, I'll sleep on a bus and then party for an entire 48 hours straight, to being like, oh, I think I'm going to drive it over the course of a couple of days. And then I'm going to stay in a nice king bed. And then, that's where I've become.
I mean, I was looking at Pittsburgh because, baseball parks, trying to see all the baseball parks, and it's like that's like the next nearest one, but there aren't a lot of trains that go to Pittsburgh. Like essentially, if you get a train from here to Pittsburgh, it runs once a day. You get there late at night, so essentially I'd have to stay for 2 nights, and I'm trying to save the money for not saving 2 nights. And I'm like, well, I could get a Greyhound bus from here at 3 a.m. that would get me there early enough in the day that I could watch the game, spend the night, and come back. And I was like, I can't do it. I cannot get on a bus at 3 a.m. and spend 8 hours, because it's really like a 6-hour trip. But the bus itself, because it's got to stop in every single medium-sized city between Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. So it's got to, hit them all.
Basically, what has to happen is I have to drive down to Philly, pick you up, and then we have to drive to Pittsburgh.
Right.
That's what clearly needs to happen.
Maybe what it is.
And I would love to do that. That would only probably be about 12 hours driving.
Right, for you, right. You'd have to, yes.
It'd be fantastic. I would really enjoy that. Yeah. Because do you know what I love about road trips? I love the fact that when you pull into a gas station on a road trip, you go in and buy food you would never in a regular week, never in a million years would you I know they have jerky in the supermarkets, but people don't go to the supermarkets and buy jerky, right? And no offense, I love jerky, but I love it on road trips when I pulled into a gas station in the middle of nowhere. Literally you look any 4 directions and there's nothing. And I'm buying, Chex Mex stuff. I don't even know that that's a brand anywhere other than gas stations. It's the one where it's we put pretzels, wheat snacks, regular chips.
Right. We dusted it with some kind of garlic flavoring.
Right. Some cheesy garlic flavoring or whatever. And then also there's a random pistachio. And you're like, is that meant to be in here? Is that part of the Chex Mix thing? Or in the factory, did shit just fall off a table into my bag?
That's what I got. Yes. And I'm just thankful it's a pistachio and not something much worse than it could have been.
But that's what it's like. You buy that, you buy a thing. I buy I'll buy gas station donuts, Matt, because I like to take my life truly in my hands, because you don't know when that donut was delivered to the gas station. You don't know how long it sat underneath the lights, sweating like it is, because it's very greasy, Matt. It's very sticky and greasy. You don't know if you bite into it, it's going to be stale or soft. It's a whole Russian roulette of a donut, Matt. And then when you've eaten it, if you've managed to eat it, you don't know what it's doing to your bowel, Matt, or how it's going to make you want to stop in an hour or so. But that's the joy of road trip food. There's a place in Arizona called Grasshopper Junction. If you're driving from Las Vegas to the Grand Canyon South entrance.
Oh, yeah.
Along the top of Arizona, you will pass through Grasshopper Junction. And Grasshopper Junction is exactly what you would expect. It's a little T road off a main highway that literally has like a Ben's World of Blood from the beginning of Dusk Till Dawn style deli / liquor store / gas station / whatever, right?
Yeah.
And it's called Grasshopper Junction, and it has a big grasshopper with cowboy boots and a hat right painted on the wall by the door. And you go in, Matt, and it's in the middle of the desert. Like it's in the middle of the Arizona desert, right? There's one long road, and there's boom, Grasshopper Junction. And the only other thing in the area is that under the hills, so under the mountains in Arizona, they have teams and teams of trailer parks. The land's very cheap. It's like $49 for an acre or something. And of course, there's no water. Fucking anything. Good luck. And there's no electricity. But if you want to live under a mountain for $49, you can. So there's a lot of people who do. And that's the only other thing that's around Grasshopper Junction, right? And in Grasshopper Junction, there is a deli counter with like fucking meats in it. And it's 3 hours in either direction from anything. So and when was the last time that meat was delivered? And like the guy behind the deli counter has got like the sweatiest, like greasiest, bloodiest apron. You're like, I don't know what's going on here. There's another guy over by the counter who doesn't even blink when the 88th mosquito of the day hits the little electric bug zapper that's right behind his head. It keeps going like that, and he just doesn't even blink. He's just like that. He's got a fly crawling across his forehead, a bead of sweat running down one side, a cigarette that never seems to burn down hanging out of his lip. There's bugs going in the zapper. There's the guy with the 8-day-old meat in the deli counter like that. And I'm all about it. I'm like, what can I eat from this poisonous dungeon of filth?
I'm seeing this because I've done this trip before from Vegas to the Grand Canyon, and we didn't stop. I think we packed because we took this I-93 or whatever, this Route 93 on the way there, where I'm seeing Grasshopper Junction. And because we were in a situation where we had to like we had to get there before dark, and of course it ended up snowing, which I don't know why it would snow. It was February, so I guess so we got to the Grand Canyon. It was dark out, and I was able to get some pictures to see it, but we passed Grasshopper Junction, but I think we didn't get off the highway, so we missed this experience of.
There's one other place that I really wish I'd gone and I never did. We were driving through Indiana, I think. And it was the middle of nowhere. So in driving through Indiana is the green version of driving through Arizona. There is nothing either side except just green, in the way that in Arizona there is nothing either side except yellow.
Right.
And that's it. But it's exactly like that. You're in the middle of nowhere. And in the middle of nowhere in Indiana, I think, there is an enormous metal rusted sign, just an enormous yellow metal rusted sign, right like like an old school tin billboard, right by the side of the road, this road that's in the middle of nowhere. And it just says in large letters, cigarettes and fireworks, next left. And I'm like, what is the genius who put cigarettes and fireworks? Do you know what I mean?
Right.
But this is like a 15-year-old alcoholic's wet dream, is a store that sells nothing but cigarettes and fireworks. That is like dumb Bubba brother, like, yeah, let's go get cigarettes and fireworks on a Friday night. And let's get arrested for pulling our cocks out in a graveyard. But the fact that I drove past this, I got a photograph of it. And I wrote a song on my album, Tales of Interstate 80, called Cigarettes and Fireworks. And I imagined this kind of a bit like the place in Nothing But Trouble, like the big kind of junkyard meets Gothic mansion meets, Bayou Americana, spooky kind of, like, I just imagine this place with, a dog chained to like an old tire. You know what I mean? From like an old tractor tire, and the dog is just like chained to an old tractor tire, and like you go in and there's furniture made out of bones and stuff, and you can buy a stuffed muskrat in prowl position, but next to the same place, next on the same shelf as a pile of jerky, which is dripping at this point onto a barrel of fireworks. And then behind the counter is just an entire wall of cigarette cartons, just as far as the eye can see. But they're all 70s brands like Pall Mall. They're all kinds of cigarettes that were like stolen off the back of a truck in 1982, and they just got wrapped selling.
Salem. Like this green and white new, like menthol wrapper. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Menthols. Yeah.
Merit 100s. Yeah. Oh, just a. Yeah, I have never really explored the center of the country much. The only time I went to Ohio and Kentucky because my friends wanted to go to the Creationism Museum because I got a kick out of it. And I was like, all right, I'll go with you to the Creationism Museum. And so that's my only real trip to like that kind of Midwestern area. I've been to Texas, but that's not really the Midwest. That's its own thing.
Of course,
yeah. I feel like I've never even been to Chicago before, let alone like Indiana or those places. I feel like there's a whole world of the middle part of the United States that, as an American, I'm trying
to figure out that now that I can work from anywhere. Yeah. I'm trying to figure out like, how do I like road trip? Like, let's say I decided to next year take 8 Fridays off in a row, right? So I worked. So I would pull into a town on a Monday morning, work Monday through Thursday, and then drive or sightsee Friday through Sunday.
Yeah.
And then get to the next town and do the same thing. Now, obviously, you would need money for gas. You need money for motels or whatever. But how cool would that be to figure out a way where you could essentially road trip the country, but still earn the same, work the same thing, earn the same whatever. But for 2 months, you could road trip the country. You could have 2 months worth of 3-day weekends.
Yeah. Yeah, that definitely sounds amazing. You could line up your time off or something the right way, and just sort of, it's an amazing. I mean, I've looked at like different possibilities, like even like because where the money comes from me, because obviously we don't drive. The money is the hotels, like that. Right. Just it essentially doubles or trebles your trip very quickly, and that's really where for me, obviously the big thing is wanting to go to different baseball parks, and so that's like it's like trying to coordinate it with and it's like, oh well, these flights to this one, to Cincinnati or Detroit don't line up with Philadelphia because nobody in Detroit or Cincinnati wants to go to Philadelphia for anything, and vice versa. And so it's the only people that want to make those trips are people that want to go to there for a baseball park specifically. And so, so that it never quite works out.
Well, I think, Matt, that we should wrap up the episode with a discussion about, because we didn't do it at the beginning of the episode. Maybe you could put it at the beginning of the episode. Dude, you've got another new book out.
Yes. Yes, yes, I just Don's House in the Mountains. Just it was one of those things where I was kind of waiting for it to be officially live on KDP, and I ran into these issues with the font on the titles.
Yeah.
They weren't rendering properly. I had to change. I had to go in and essentially put in new fonts for the chapter titles. Once they came back good, I was like, okay, let's publish it, and then just put it out on
Now the
on
problem is, of course, is that I was collecting the
I know.
books as they were,
Yeah.
and now Don's House in the Mountains has a cover that better matches the new covers that you have out for your books.
Yes.
So now I feel like I have to buy the whole set again.
No.
So
Just give me
that
your
I
address.
can get the matching covers.
No,
I want
if
the
you just-
matching covers, man. That's what I
If
want.
you just give me your address, I can send you author's copies. So then,
Yeah, I don't want to take your author's copies away from you, sir.
well, no, they make them on demand just the way that they make the, because there's some people. I'm not in that category, but there's some people who buy boxes of author's copies and just like they distribute them to stores. They do book
Right.
signings, that kind of thing. I can't do any of that stuff, but I usually get an author's copy for myself and just be like, okay, and I get one for Jen and call it good. But I could get you those, the three that you had.
Don't feel that you have to do, but I'm very excited to because I'm happy to buy the books.
Yeah.
But I'm very excited to read Don's House in the Mountains. Can you give us the elevator pitch?
Yeah, so the elevator. So Don, he's a writer over 20 years, just sort of toiling away. Suddenly becomes famous almost overnight, rich and famous. His wife is disillusioned. She's not happy, so she files for divorce. So that forces him to has to move out, and he gets a house in the White Mountains of New Hampshire. It's kind of a sort of a Tempest vibe where he's just sort of in this house by himself. Then friends, family come to visit him while he's there. And of course, as he's living there, he starts to feel like maybe the house has magical qualities. And it's a question of, is the house magic, or is it because he's so rich he can just buy anything he wants? And that's really what so and as he's sort of trying to deal with this, he's moving on with a college friend, and then his wife comes back into the picture, and he's worried with the wife coming back into the picture. It's like, this magic house going to bring us back together, and is that something if the house is even magic at all, right? So so
Oh, fantastic. I'm excited to read it.
Yeah, borrows from the Tempest. Also Iris Murdoch's the Sea, which I think she also was borrowing from the Tempest, but she wrote that. But so it's he is very Gen X. He was born 1970. His friends are, but there's a lot of sort of those generational kinds of things. To people that are kind of more our age, that come into his orbit, and he makes fun of them for not being Gen X, that not being officially Gen X. Some of those kinds of things that come up.
I'm officially Gen X, man.
Right. Yeah.
And you're officially Gen X. Gen X officially ends in 1984.
Oh, I heard 81. So that was
We're called Zennials sometimes.
Right, exactly, Xennials, right? Because we're kind of in between. Yeah,
yes. We're sometimes called Zennials, but I reject that notion. Although interestingly enough, there is a between the greatest generation and the boomers, there is a silent generation.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
And they always talk about Scorsese and Coppola and people like that as boomers, but they're not. They're actually the silent generation.
Yeah.
And similarly, that's us. We are the gap between Gen X and millennials, and we are this smaller generation that, as you say, runs from like 77 to like 84 or whatever. But I way more relate to Gen X than I do millennials.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I agree. No, that's kind of what it is. That's sort of the piece. The older ones are giving the younger ones a hard time, and then the younger ones say, hey, compared to millennials, I think we've got more. That's kind of what it is. But that's kind of something. But it's sort of a lot of those kind of interplays, and so this is the one that I wrote during lockdown. So it was like I set myself a challenge of doing 4,000 words a day for the month of April of 2020, and managed to make it work. And this was it.
I need to do that. I need to do that with my script. I need to be like, write 3 pages a day of script. Because I'd have to do the math on that. But if I wanted 90 pages, would have to be a month, right?
Yeah. And what you have to be prepared to do, what I've found with these kind of like these marathon writing sessions, is this, set up, get like a separate Word file or something ready for like scraps, because just know that there's probably going to be a chance that like maybe you're doing 3 pages a day, but maybe like you think about it after and you're like, man, that third page, I don't really like that. But you don't just throw it out completely. You sort of cut it out and put it in this other Word file, and then you can always come back to it if you need it.
Yeah.
So I find that tends to work. And sometimes I just never go back to it, but at least I know it's there. So
yeah, I just never, I tend to write like 3 or 4 page sketches. I don't tend to write like full scripts, and I've got about 35 pages so far, but I just need to plow through and finish it. Even if the script is crap,
right.
like I just want to finish it, and the fact that I haven't finished it is bothering me.
Yeah.
So, but I think that I will have a release for December's Bandcamp Friday. So I'm hoping that I'll have at least an EP by that point. I wrote a couple of songs over the last couple of days. I haven't recorded anything yet, but I think I could probably put together like 6 songs or something by Bandcamp Friday. So I might have a release then. But I'm very looking forward to buying Don's House in the Mountains from Amazon. And is there any more that you want to say about the book, Matt?
No, I think that's it. But I think also for people, December 1st, Bandcamp Friday, keep a lookout then for for your EP there.
And watch Bloodfist.
Yes.
And watch Bloodfist as a series, and relish and enjoy the work of Don the Dragon Wilson.
Yes, I agree for sure. Most of them are available. You should definitely check them out. I think
by the time you've done all the Bloodfists, will Don the Dragon Wilson have risen up your ladder, you think?
No, I think he's good on 3. I think he and Rothrock for 3. I think it's really Fred Williamson who could potentially overtake Dolph. I think that's the question. Is Fred Williamson is my number 2, Dolph's my number 1. I think he could potentially, Fred Williamson, with his contributions, could potentially overtake Dolph with his direct-to-video. But I think Wilson and Rothrock tied for 3. That's a pretty solid tied for 3.
No, that is a pretty solid. I don't know that there's a Bloodfist that would dislodge that placement.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
But no, I thoroughly enjoyed watching these 2 movies and would strongly recommend them.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, for sure. Same here as well. But thanks for coming on, Joe. This was a lot of fun talking Bloodfist here, and
and about 700 other topics,
which is usually what happens, which is perfectly fine as well. I think it's
Yes, you may have to edit it, or you may just put it out as is. I don't need stuff edited, but some of the time I think I rambled till I forgot what it was I was talking about.
Yeah, I usually just let it go. I know there was Scott Murphy from All 90s Action all the time and New Horror Express. I had him on last year, and we talked about the World Cup for like 45 minutes. And of course, none of what we talked about ended up happening because the World Cup was still happening at the time. By the time I posted the episode, the World Cup was finished, and we had this. And he's like, I thought you were going to just cut that whole conversation out. I was so shocked that you left that in. I was like, well, it was a conversation. It was about world soccer and stuff like that. And
well, you come from the same school of podcasting as I do, which is that every minute is gold.
Right. Yes,
like,
exactly.
More minutes is better than. Everyone's like, well, why don't we have? Like, I'm going to go. It's funny. I'm going to go the other way on podcasts than I do on movies. Movies, I want to talk 88 minutes. Podcasts. Keep talking, man. I don't mind.
You can have podcasts going in the background. Movies, you have to sit and watch them. You have to be present.
Right.
Podcasts, you can be present while doing other things. You can cook while you have a podcast going. You can walk. You can be on the subway.
You can masturbate vigorously into a pitcher of beer.
Yes.
While listening to this podcast.
Well, listen to this podcast.
That's something you want to do.
Exactly.
You could have El DeBarge playing in your bathroom, like the real El DeBarge.
Right.
And you could have Jimmy Smits reciting Dylan Thomas poems on your veranda. And in your living room, you could be listening to this podcast. Yeah. And I tell you what, if you're living a Jimmy Smits on my veranda, El DeBarge in my bathroom type of life, I don't know why you're listening to this podcast. Exactly. I think you've got it made already. Yes, who wouldn't want that weirdly specific scenario?
Yeah. I think in this world that we've been talking about being complete shit right now.
Yes,
You're making out the best if you've got that situation going on.
Yeah, no, I mean, who wouldn't want that to be going on? I mean, I think at a certain point, I'd be like, "Elle, can you pipe down? Enough." You know what I mean? It was fun for the first 3 hours. Your mix of R&B, gospel funk was relatively pleasing, but at this point, I think I need to knock it on the head. And Jimmy Smits, how much fucking Dylan Thomas you gonna read anything other than Dylan Thomas? Come on, Jimmy. You were on LA Law for how many seasons? Figure it out. Read something else. Get a fucking Bronte book or I don't know, something contemporary. You know what I mean? Why not read some Clive Cussler? Jimmy Smith, right? Reads Clive Cussler's Boat with Large Guns. Or whatever.
Fantastic.
Frederick Forsyth's the Spy Who Came Over Guns. Read by Jimmy Smits.
Right, exactly.
Or Jimmy Smits is Dylan Thomas reading Clive Cussler's Goats and Bombs, or whatever it was. Anyway.
Yes, exactly. No, I think we'll wrap. That's a good place to wrap it. Jimmy Smith's doing some Clive Cussler Goats and Bombs. I think that would be perfect. That's the place to wrap it.
Yes.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again, John, for coming on. This was a lot of fun, and this is gonna be actually, but we'll wrap this up here. But thanks again for coming on, John. This was a lot of fun, and
You've
and of
been
course,
Weird Willie, and I've been Sporty Black.
You've been Sporty Black, exactly. And Wheelhead thanks you for listening.
Yes. All hail the giant Wheelhead.
Yes, excellent. All right.
All right, man. See you soon. All the best.